All right, guys. Can everybody hear me okay? All right. So I was supposed to have a mic. I think this is like the third event in a row that there was an issue with the mic. My voice isn't that loud, but I'll do the best I can. Can you guys hear me in the way back? All right, good deal. Hopefully I'll have a mic shortly. But so 90 days ago, I did a post on Facebook. For those of you who are friends with me on Facebook or follow me on Facebook, you guys will see like I do a lot of posting online. And I posted something basically just saying like, hey, there's no deals on the MLS to be found. And that you've got to get deals off market. And almost immediately, like I know I've been doing this for 10 years talking about getting off market deals. Every time I say that like the sky is blue, like 5 people will say, yeah, but I saw a pink sky last night, right? Like there's always the people that are going to comment and say, I got a deal on the MLS like 2 years ago, or I got one last month, or somehow, some way. How's that? Is that better? Or does it not matter? Yeah. Yeah. All right. Awesome. Testing. Yeah, it's on. Testing. Okay. Is that better? Yeah. All right. Good deal. So invariably, there's always somebody that will say, I got a deal on the MLS. I got something 2 years ago. I got something 6 months ago. I got something like whenever, right? And so interestingly enough, a friend of mine out in Sacramento, California commented on the post and he said, Tom, I don't totally agree with what you're saying. In fact, I've actually gotten 3 deals on the MLS every month for the last 6 months. So this friend of mine, his name's Matt Recor. He's a pretty, good investor in Sacramento, California. I reached out to him and I said, Matt, like, I'm a very open-minded person. I'm always interested to see how people are kind of like doing things. Can you do me a favor and just tell me like what you're doing to get deals on the MLS? So he said, I'm glad you asked because I actually just started a coaching program that's going to show people exactly how to do that. Program was like $8,000. Again, this is a friend of mine, so like I know he's not kind of just making stuff up. So I bought the program, started the program, and for the last 60 days, I've made 900 offers per month on the MLS. Okay. Now I'm not even going to ask you guys how many you think I got accepted, because we wouldn't be here right now. I wouldn't be making a point right now if I had gotten any accepted. So I'm 1,800 offers in the last 2 months with 0 offers accepted. And I know Matt, he's not lying to me. Like I know he's an honest person. I know he's probably done that in Sacramento. But I guess my point in starting this event off is just to say, really doesn't work here. It just really doesn't. Like if you're looking to get good deals in Massachusetts, in Rhode Island, in Connecticut, in New Hampshire, like you're really, really gonna struggle trying to get deals on the MLS. Now, in full disclosure, because everything I'm gonna say to you guys is just fact, like I'm not giving up on this yet. I'm gonna give it another 60 days just to see what happens. But 1,800 offers in, I'm not too optimistic, right? And the other thing I want to say about this, 1,800 offers really quickly, is that I know that even in the next 60 days, even if I get an offer accepted, that it's not going to be predictable. So what I know just from having 1,800 offers rejected is that if I want to run a business where I know that I'm going to be able to support my family, my 4 kids, all that good stuff, like I can't run a business hoping that 1 out of 1,800 offers gets accepted. So if I want to do 10 flips in a year, like I can't rely on the MLS. So at the very, very best, maybe I get a couple deals a year on the MLS. I don't even know if that will happen, but maybe 1 or 2 or 3 out of the 130 deals we do this year will be on the MLS, but all of the other ones are going to be found off the MLS. And obviously that's the topic, that's what we're going to be talking about today. But I just wanted to share that stat because I've been, finding deals off market for over 10 years now. And every single time that I say that you can't get a good deal on the MLS, there's always somebody that tells me that you can, okay? So I want to start out by saying that it's not impossible, but I give the analogy all the time about fishing in 2 ponds. Pond number 1 and pond number 2. So pond number 1 is the MLS, all right? And at pond number 1, there is exactly 1 fish in that pond or 1 deal in that pond. And there's hundreds of people fishing in that pond. There's hundreds of investors that are trying to get that 1 fish. And they all put their poles, they all put their lines in the water. And invariably, because there's 1 fish, 1 fisherman is going to come out with the fish. That 1 person is going to say, yes, you can catch fish in pond number 1. The rest of them are all going to realize it's very, very challenging. What we're here to talk about today isn't pond number 1, it's pond number 2, which is the off-market pond. The off-market pond probably has 10 or 20 or 30 fish in it, and there might be like 5 or 10 people fishing in it. So much less competition, many more fish, just a lot easier. If we're talking about creating a repeatable and predictable business, you need to be in pond number 2. If this is just kind of like a hobby for you, it's fine. Stay in pond number 1, it's fine. But it goes a little bit further than that too. Because how many people in this room right now are real estate agents? So the other problem with fishing in pond number 1, where everybody is on the MLS, is you can't build a seller-based business off of that. If everybody in this room was generating 5 to 10 seller appointments per week, regardless of how many investing deals you would get, you would also build a listing-based business. Now, I don't even have to ask the question, but how many of you in this room, you don't have to raise your hand, but just think about this in your head. How many people in this room have been working with buyers that have been trying to buy a house for over a year? Right? People are raising their hand, right? You can't even hold it. They're so mad that you're still raising your hand, right? And we're in a market right now, look, there's a reason that there's a saying, list to last, right? That's been a saying well before this market cycle. But in this market cycle, there couldn't be more reasons to build a seller-based business. Between the fact that you can work with a very well-qualified buyer that just can't find a house, or with all of the stuff going on with the potential commission changes, you could work with buyers and then potentially not get paid or fight to have to get paid. Is everybody kind of aware of what the changes are with the MLS settlement? Raise your hand on that. So most people, right? So it's possible, I'm not going to make a prediction here, but it's possible that buyer agent commissions may change, and they may change in a bad way. So for every listing that you get, how many pre-approved buyers is that worth? I don't know the answer. I just know that if everybody in this room were to pick between a well-priced listing or a pre-approved buyer, we're gonna pick the listing every single time, right? So it's not even just about wanting to flip houses. It's also about building a listing-based business, right? Because we're all here. Every single person is in this room today because they want to improve their life. Simple as that. You came in here, you might be doing well, but you want to do better, right? You want to improve. So even if the only thing that you did by building a listing-based business, by coming here was to build a listing-based business, that would be enough. But of course, we're going to talk about how that ties into investing. So I do want to talk about like how that relates both to flipping and buying and holding. And I want to start with buying and holding first, because there's a common misconception that you don't need to get deals off market in order to buy and hold. So most people, when they think about investing, we all read a book, we all were on a webinar, we were all on a podcast, and what attracted us to it? Like, what attracted us to investing? Somebody like raise their hand and shout it out. What was it?
Financial freedom.
Financial freedom. And how do you get there, right? Like, it's monthly income every month, right? You're owning assets, having monthly income coming in every single month, and that exceeding the amount of money that you need to live off of. For some of us, that's $5,000. For some of us, it's $10,000. For some of us, it might be $20,000, whatever that number is. That idea, that concept, which probably everybody in this room knows somebody that has achieved that by owning 10 or 20, small multifamily buildings. Like, we all know it's achievable. We all know it can be done, but how do we actually do it? So every single week, I have an agent investor inner circle meeting where people who are considering joining our coaching program get on. And everybody has a plan for how to get their first multifamily or their first asset. Everybody has that plan, whether it's to save up some money for a down payment or partner with somebody or whatever. It's property number 2 and property number 3 that are the problem. So if you think about property number 1, we're in the south of Boston. Let's just say like a town like Brockton, which has a lot of multifamilies. Let's say that we buy a typical average 3-family in Brockton. That might throw off $500 per unit or $1,500 per month. A great solid investment that's going to get better over time is $1,500 a month going to make us financially free? No, right? Like, we need like 10 of those, right? We need 8 of those, 10 of those, 15 of those to become financially free. So everybody gets like how you can get to the first one. Maybe you house hack, maybe you put down 3% or 3.5%, or you just save up for a while. Everybody gets that. Then the question becomes, how do I get to number 2? Because number 1 is not enough, right? One of those is not enough. And then everybody kind of gets like stumped, or they think like, hey, I'll just save up over the next 3 or 4 years. But you said that everybody's in this room for financial freedom, right? When do we want to become financially free? Right. It's not in like 30 years. Because if we all had a 30-year horizon, you could buy a multifamily on the MLS, you could wait 7 or 8 years and then refi it, you could do it again, you could do it again, you could do it again. And in 30 years, you would be financially free. And if you're in this room and that's your goal, it's an easy goal to achieve. It's not a complicated goal. But if you want to do it more by like 2030, which is probably a realistic goal for most people who are in this room, or sometime around 2030, if you're kind of in the beginning phases, then you need to figure out a way to get more than one property every 5 or 6 years. You need to be more like on a path of getting a property every year. So how do you do that? Because in reality, like, if you're going to buy one of these 3 families in Brockton that might sell for $600,000 and you need to come up with 20%, that means you need to save $120,000 a year, which is not realistic for most people. So how do we actually do it in a way that is achievable? Well, it's getting the deal off market. Why does getting the deal off market matter? Well, if you go and you buy a 3-family on the MLS for $600,000 right now, and it's worth $600,000, what is it going to be worth a year from now? I don't know, 620, 630, 640, who knows? But I do know this, you're not going to be able to refi it and pull $120,000 back out and then buy another property, right? Unless some, miraculous miracle happens, market goes up 30%, but not probably very likely. So compare that to getting a deal off market and getting that same exact deal. Instead of paying $600 on the MLS, you get it for $475. Maybe you buy it, you put a little bit of value add into it, and all of a sudden that property's worth $650 next year. Now you can go to the bank, do an 80-20 cash out refi, get a line of credit, get $100,000 out, and then buy your next property. Therefore, allowing you to do maybe one of these every year, maybe one every 18 months. Does that make sense? So the other thing about doing this quickly is the more of these assets that you have, the faster you have them, the more that you can pull money out of them as time goes on. Meaning if you all own 30 units right now, maybe 10 3-families right now, every year you'd be able to pull equity from at least one of them, right? Pull equity from one, use that to buy another. You'd be able to buy one every single year. That's what we probably all want to do, right? We all want to have 6 figures of passive income coming in every single month. And that's why it's so important to getting the deals off market, because you can't get a good enough deal on the MLS to be able to build equity and then refi out 6 months later to 12 months later. Does all of that make sense? Does everybody understand kind of the importance of why we need to get off market deals? So one other thing to this as well is just the most common way that people build wealth. As a small entrepreneur, small business owner, which I would consider myself, and I would probably consider every person in this room, right? We're all in a position where we all have either our company is ourselves or our company is just a small company. The most common way towards building wealth is going by the path of finding off-market deals, flipping or wholesaling 1 or 2 or 3 of them, and using that money as a down payment for another asset. So when I got into this business back in 2007, I had no interest in flipping homes, and we flipped over 1,000 homes since then. I only wanted to own passive income assets. And my mentor taught me that in order to do this, you need to get discounted off-market deals. And so that's what we started to do. The first deal that we ever did that I know a lot of you know about is 13 Cameron Ave in Somerville. It was a 2-family that we could have kept, but we really didn't have a capital in order to keep it. So we ended up wholesaling it, making $115,000. That allowed us to then buy more assets going forward. Does that make sense? So for example, if you said to me, I want to earn 6 figures of passive income and I want to own multifamilies in Brockton, and maybe you need 10 of those, then I would be out there trying to get a few off-market deals in Brockton every single year, a few multifamily off-market deals, and either partnering with us or wholesaling or flipping 1 or 2 of them, and then using that money to purchase the next one. So maybe you get 2 off-market deals that you let go of, quick turns, and then the third one you keep. Does that make sense? And so I have a lot of experience doing this. I've done it myself, but I've also worked with a lot of people who have done this. And this is the most common way that people become multimillionaires in real estate. It's the most common. I like things that are common. I don't like things where you have to be an outlier in order to do it. What I just explained is something that an average person can do. There are definitely other ways to get wealthy that superhuman people can do. I just don't happen to be one of those people, and I like to teach methods that everybody can do. Okay? So the other part to this is if you find an off-market deal, we also have our partnership program. Who here knows about that? All right, so I'm only going to spend 10 seconds on it because it's really simple. And if anybody's out there going out trying to get these off-market deals, and we're going to spend most of the time today teaching you how to do that, you always have us as an outlet to partner with. So you find an off-market deal. If you're in the inner circle, we'll actually go on appointments with you. We'll put up the money. We'll do the construction, and then we'll split the profits 50-50. We closed on a deal last week. Giovanni Philbrook brought us a condo in Haverhill, Mass, where he needed to have a 3-day close. Property was going to foreclosure. We closed on the property in 3 days. We put up all the money. We did the renovations, and we just sent him a $35,000 check. which was half of the profits of the $70,000 that we made on that fix and flip. It's 12 Oliver in Haverhill. It just closed. And we're doing, on average now, 3 to 4 of these a month where we're putting these under contract with agents that we work with. And so how does that help you get to your financial freedom? Well, again, if you need $100,000 for a down payment on one of these, like you just need to do a few of these deals a year. We actually just put one under contract with you, Colleen, like today. Like I literally just got the memo, right? Today, right? So, you know, these opportunities can be had by anybody in this room. And I'm going to talk about how to get them, but like there are so many different ways to kind of get opportunities like this. Most agents have the ability to get off-market deals more than they think. To illustrate that story, Henry Nugent, who's in the inner circle, went to a continuing education event, just sat there, was listening to other agents in the room. Somebody said, I have an off-market deal in Quincy. He referred that to us, 15 Merriam in Quincy, and we're partnering with him on that. We just finished the renovation, put that under contract, and that's scheduled to be a 6-figure profit that we're gonna split with him. He was just showing up doing the continuing education that he was gonna do anyways, okay? So he's likely, I mean, it hasn't closed yet, but he'll likely make $50,000 just for showing up to a CE event, which is the whole purpose of Agent Investor, right? Like most of the stuff that we talk about is not like stuff that you shouldn't be doing anyways. Like who here wants to build a seller-based business? Okay, who here wants to build a buyer-based business? So like, this is all stuff you guys, like I don't even, if you hated investing, if you hated me, this is all stuff you should be doing anyways, regardless. All right. So any questions on why off markets are important before I switch gears and talk about like what you should do next, assuming that you believe that you should be getting deals off market and you should be building a seller-based business? Any questions on the why? All right, cool. So then it becomes like, well, how do I get them? And this is something, you know, that I also talk to people in the Inner Circle coaching program about all the time, which is going through our 5-step process. Who here is familiar with the Agent Investor 5-step process? All right, good, because I was a little concerned this was going to be a repeat. But even if it was a repeat, what I'm about to say, even the people that I work with directly, most people still don't do this. The most important thing that you can do as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, is spend your time the right way. I know that sounds very simplistic, so simplistic, but most people as entrepreneurs, small business entrepreneurs, wake up and they don't have a plan for how they're going to spend their time. With agents, that's a deadly thing. Because guess what? As soon as we open up our email or check our phones, what do we have? Messages. Like low priority. We could make them high priority in our brains, but they're not like business building things. They're tasks that we can make emergencies, but that we should put lower down on our list every day. Has anybody ever read the book Eat That Frog? Okay, simple concept. All it says is that if you're gonna have to eat a frog every single day, like if you have to literally eat a live frog every single day, the best time to eat that live frog is first thing in the morning. Why? Because if we don't, the rest of our day is gonna be spent procrastinating, doing that hard thing. So it's a simple concept, and this is a life-altering thing. Most of the stuff I talk about today, very simple concepts, but most people don't do them. So business building things, which is going to be most of what we're talking about today, tend to get put to the end of the day and then they never get done. What gets put first? The emergency email from the mortgage broker. Like and you guys can make a list of all of these things. I'm going to put in air quotations that are emergencies, which we all know aren't, but we tend to prioritize as humans, right? As humans, we want to avoid pain. Doing these business building things is more painful than answering an email. So if we don't actually discipline ourselves to do the hardest things first, we're always going to do the easiest things first and we're never going to do the hard things. Okay? So the 5-step process is really simple, and it's all about how you spend your time. Every single week when I do an inner circle call, I ask people a question, and I almost never get the answer I want. And the question is, how many of you who are on this call measure your stats every single week? You have numbers every single week that you look at, and you're confident that you're measuring the right numbers. Now, just to prove a point, and I just ask that you guys be as honest as you possibly can be, how many people here have a weekly scorecard that they look at every single week? So like 3 or 4 people, which means that most people don't even know if they've had a successful day or a successful week, right? It's a blessing and the curse of being self-employed. We have freedom of time, but if we spend our time the wrong way, we're not going to get the results that we want. Now, as I'm up here saying this, I'm not perfect. Like, I probably spent the first 6 or 7 or 8 years in my business not having a scorecard, not looking at my numbers every week. I just didn't. I didn't think it was valuable. I didn't understand it. I didn't do it. But if you don't know what you're supposed to be doing every week, you don't know if you're making the right progress, you don't know if you need to change directions, etc. So the 5-step process is pretty simple. And step number 1 is to figure out, like, where are you at today? It's to do a self-inventory. How much money do you have in the bank? What are your assets? How much time do you have? How much experience do you have? And we have a worksheet that helps people figure that out. Step number 2, and I'm going quick, this would be a whole day in of itself. Step number 2 is to figure out where you want to be 5 to 10 years in the future. So, like, you have to think about, like, what your dream life is, and then put a dollar amount next to it per month. So I see a lot of people doing, like, vision boards, and they'll go to, like, CVS and basically do, like, a 6th grade, like, school project where they cut out, like, a picture of a Ferrari and, like, a house in Hawaii and all this stuff, and then they hang it up, you know, somewhere in their office. They look at it 3 times and it bears nothing, like, on your life. You need to know exactly what you want your life to look like and how much that's going to cost. So in week number 2, step number 2, when people are in the inner circle, we give them the week 2 worksheet, which makes you actually list out all of the expenses of your dream life on a monthly basis, right? So everyone's dream life is a little bit different. We have somebody that she worked for me for 6 or 7 years. She ended up retiring early. She lives extremely frugally, but she's living exactly the life of her dreams. And then we have other people like myself who spend a lot of money and need a lot of money to live. So my expenses every month for my dream life are a lot higher. But you need to know what that number is, because if you don't know what that number is, you don't know what your activity needs to be every single week, right? So somebody who needs $4,000 a month to live their dream life is going to be a lot different than somebody who needs $40,000 a month to live their dream life. So step number 3, and this is another one that takes a lot of, like, introspective approach, which is, like, what's your investment vehicle going to be? Again, when I ask most people, like, what they want to invest in, the answer is usually everything. Like, I want to flip, I want to do short-term rentals, I want to do long-term rentals, I want to do apartments, I want to do storage units, I want to run a hotel. It's the wrong answer. It's the wrong answer not because there's necessarily a right answer, it's the wrong answer because it's not possible, right? Sometimes when we, like, dream and we think about 5 to 10 years into the future, we overestimate what we can do. And in order to be good at anything, you need to be very specialized. So you need to figure out what the vehicle is going to be. You can be successful in any of those vehicles. I don't care which one it is. Short-term rentals, long-term rentals, apartments, you name it. Whatever you're going to name, you can be good at it, but you have to be, you can succeed in it, but you have to be very good. So if you look at it not like, hey, I can be average in, like, 10 areas, but I'm going to be the best in one area, you'll get bigger results. Okay, so that's another conversation that I have with a lot of people, because owning different types of assets and doing different types of investing means you're going to be doing different things every day. Like there's a different lifestyle to somebody who's going to flip 50 houses a year versus somebody who's going to invest in apartments. So it's all about like picking an investment vehicle that kind of fits your future and what you want. That's a tough one. Like a lot of people in this room shouldn't have that answer today. It should be something that you put a lot of thought into. Because again, we're talking about getting off-market deals. I could give you all the strategies on how to get off-market deals, but like, what are you targeting? Like if you want to do apartments, like you're not going to be doing the same things as if you're doing flips. If you're doing flips, you're not going to do the same thing as if you're wanting short-term vacation rentals in Cape Cod. So a lot of people like skip to the actual strategy before actually figuring out like the plan, right? The 5-step process is the plan. Step number 4, once you know all this stuff, is to figure out like what are your top 3 to 6 priorities this quarter. We just started Q4 of 2023. It's a great time to set a few high priorities. These priorities are the business building priorities for you. They're the things, they're the eat this frog thing that you do first, right? They're not the reactionary things. They're not the things that are going to actually make you go out and change your business. Like they're not going to be forced upon you. You have to force them. So I know that you guys, most of you know about the agent partnership program. That was something that we developed maybe 6 months ago. That was one of my priorities, right? And I'm spending a lot of time doing that. It'd be really easy for me to not do that. And if I open my email right now after a long weekend, like I probably have a good like 350 to 400 emails that I could respond to, but I'm not even looking at them. I'm doing this first, right? Because this is more important. And then step number 5, like I asked you guys a couple of minutes ago, like who has a scorecard that they look at every single week and measure yourself, right? So if we're talking about like off-market deals and off-market opportunities, what does that mean? That means that you have to have something on your scorecard, one item that says how many seller appointments do you have in a week? Because that's really what it's all about. Like how many off-market opportunities are you generating? Well, how many do you need to generate? That goes back to steps 1 and 2 and 3. It depends on what you're trying to do, right? So you need to have some sort of stat that you look at every single week to say, all right, I'm building a short-term rental portfolio. I need 2 appointments in Falmouth every single week for the next year in order to achieve my goals. Like they need to be that specific so that you actually wake up every day knowing exactly what you need to do, and every single week knowing whether or not you're actually hitting your goal. Like if you're not measuring anything, you're not going to hit your goal. If you don't know what your goal is, you're not going to hit it, right? And all of this stuff, as I'm sitting up here talking, it's really, really easy to say. It's a lot harder to do, right? To go through those 5 steps, to figure out the investment vehicle, to figure out your priorities. That's where like our coaching program comes in, where these should be conversations that you're having with a mentor who's at a position where you want to be at some point in the future. Like those are the questions, that's the stuff that you should be talking about. The number 1 question I always ask people to please ask me is, this is how I'm spending my time. Tell me how you're spending your time and ask me whether or not it's the right use of your time. My favorite question to get. Most people do not ask me that question, even though I beg to have it asked. I beg people. And most people don't spend time to actually write out on a weekly basis how they spent their time. Like you don't need to do this every week, but every so often you should write down, how am I spending my 40 hours or 30 hours or 50 hours? And then ask somebody who's a mentor, like, is this a good use of how I'm spending my time? Because again, how you spend your time is literally formulaically going to tell you how much you're going to make. And somebody who's a mentor should be able to tell you whether or not you're on the right path. Okay? Does all of this stuff make sense? Any questions on this so far? So we've talked about so far that we need off-market opportunities. We want to build a seller-based business. We want to do flips, or we want to do short-term rentals or long-term rentals or apartment deals or whatever. So the key thing is, how do I get seller appointments, right? I mean, who would like to have like 3 to 10 seller appointments a week? I'm sure I don't need people to raise their hand to know that you want to have that happen, right? Now, everybody will raise their hand, but I'm going to ask another question that, again, I don't want you to necessarily answer, but how many of you are spending 10 hours a week trying to get seller appointments? Right? There's a few people, a few hands, but most of you aren't. Most of you want the 10 appointments, but you're not doing anything to get them. Again, most of what I say today is going to be so simple, but think about that for a second. Like, I want 6-pack abs, but I'm not doing anything to get them. Probably not going to get them, right? Same exact thing. But that's where the scorecard comes into play so much, where if you look every single week to be like, hey, am I getting the appointments? And it's a no, well, you know that you've got to do something different. But let's talk about like high level, how you get appointments. So there's only 2 ways to get seller appointments. You can either spend time or you can spend money. There's no third option. I'm going to briefly go through spending money. Before I go into more depth, we're going to do a second section where I'm going to go in more depth. But the biggest thing to know about spending money to generate seller opportunities is that it's not cheap. So on average, we spend about $800 to $1,000 per appointment. Now, whether that sounds like a little bit of money or a lot of money, understand that we need about 10 of those to get one good investment deal. So maybe it costs us somewhere around $10,000 to get one good investment deal. Now, that may mean nothing to anybody in this room, but if we're spending $10,000, our average fix and flip profit might be $50,000 or $60,000. So while $10,000 is a lot of money to spend, we're net positive by spending that money. Does that make sense? Okay. We're also generating, if we get 10 appointments, 9 appointments with potential listings. I mean, it doesn't always work out that they're all listings. Maybe we went head to head with another investor and lost an investing deal, but we're getting in the living room of sellers to talk about selling their house. And that's really all that matters. So if we're going to spend money, we know we've got to spend a good amount of money. And how much do we spend? Well, it goes back to, what are your goals? If you don't complete steps 1 through 5 that I just talked about, we don't even know how many appointments you need per week. We definitely need to know how many appointments you need per week, right? Because then we need to say, if we're going to spend money, how much do we need to spend? So when we talk about spending money, most people, and this is not a bad thing, it's just reality, most people want to spend like $500 a month on seller marketing. So if you kind of do the math, $500 a month times 12 months, we get to $6,000. That means we will buy 0 houses a year. Actually, we'll buy 0.6. We'll buy 0.6 houses a year. How about a half a house a year? Take about 2 years to buy a house. But you probably buy none in reality, because you won't get the lead flow that you need. You won't ever get good at these appointments. So in my opinion, you've got to spend a few $1,000s a month to start to even like think that this is like a good idea, which knocks most people out of doing it, either because they don't have the money or they don't want to commit the money, which is why like most people start with free marketing. Free marketing makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense, honestly, even if you have money. Because like when I started, I had no money, and I used to door knock. I used to walk up and down in Alden, Mass, knock on every door, and I would get a deal, and out of that deal, I would use that money to reinvest back into paid marketing. So paid marketing gives you your time back, right? So that's the benefit of paid marketing. But you definitely need to have, in my opinion, like $50,000 set aside. Okay, I'm going to put this in a bank account. I'm going to spend it, and I'm not going to look up until it's gone. And that's really hard to do in the beginning unless you do a few really good deals. So when we did our first deal, the 2-family in Cameron Ave, I had 2 other partners. We took $17,000 each of that $115,000 profit and put the rest back into marketing and kept spending that money every single month. So I'm gonna go into like how to do paid marketing in the second section, but if you're sitting in this room right now and you're thinking like, I can't do $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000 a month, or I don't want to, I wouldn't learn anything else about paid marketing right now outside of what we teach today, because it'll be a waste of your time. Another little tangent that I want to go off on because it's important is you want to make sure once you have a plan, let's say your plan is to door knock and that's your plan. You want to spend like all of your waking hours learning about that. So one other thing, and this is just a general observation with people that I coach, is that a lot of times I get questions that I actually don't even want to give the answer to, because the question essentially is getting somebody off track of what their initial plan is. So it's really, really important, getting back to the eat this frog concept. If you have a plan and you know what to do every single day, like it's really cool to learn about other things, but you want to spend most of your time focused on that one thing that's the most important thing in your business. So that's the high level of paid marketing. Free marketing is a little different, right? So free marketing is going to take your time. There's not really too many things that you can do for free marketing. And I'm going to go into depth again in section 2 on what to do with free marketing. But the most often overlooked thing with free marketing is people's SOI. So I always ask people this, like if I'm on a call with somebody, and they say I'm not getting deals, I'm not, I'm slow in my real estate business, whatever, I will type in their name on Facebook and I will scroll down their newsfeed to see if I even would know that they were in real estate. 8 or 9 times out of 10, I would not know that they were in real estate. That's bad. It's really freaking bad. Like that's the easiest thing that you can do that takes the least amount of time, that's going to get you the biggest results. Everybody here has a sphere. Everybody here has people that know and like and trust them. And I'm sure, I don't care what brokerage you're at, you've been taught this. But yet, when I go on people's social media and I scroll down, I don't know they're in real estate. I definitely don't know that they're an investor. Like if I had a beat up house that I thought had to be sold in a non-traditional way, even if I knew they were a realtor, I probably wouldn't call them. I'd probably call Tom because he sends me a mailer every month. That's the problem for you guys. Like if somebody in your sphere is getting my mailer and they're calling me instead of you, that's a problem. That's a lost opportunity for you. But why aren't they calling you? Well, number one, they might not even know you're in real estate because you haven't posted anything about real estate. But have you posted anything specific to investing? Are you posting that you're looking for deals? Are you posting before and after pictures? Are you telling your clients that you not only will provide them with a quote for how much their house is worth, but you'll also provide them with an offer? Very, very simple. Like, are you adding 10 or 15 or 20 people to your social media account every single week? And then are you posting, reminding people that you're also an investor? Is anybody here doing that very simple, basic thing, like adding 20 people a week and then posting something related to investing? All right, so we have Al and you too, so 2 people, 3 people in the whole room, right? And I'm not saying this because I'm trying to make anybody feel bad. This is good. Like this is low hanging fruit. Like you want to tackle the lowest hanging fruit first. Yes, you can mail. Yes, you can cold call. Yes, you can do all these things. But if you're not taking the low hanging fruit first, like that's the easiest way to get a deal. Like realistically, everybody in this room through your SOI probably has the ability to get, I'm just going to throw a random number out there, but it's probably pretty accurate. Maybe like 1 deal a year from your SOI. If you just do that simple thing I just said. add 10 or 15 people a week, right? And post about investing, right? I've got an option. I'll tell you the value of your house. I'll also come with an offer. Most people aren't going to want the offer, but they're getting 1 out of 10 is going to take it. Okay. All right. So second way to get off market deals is through agents. We all co-broke with agents all the time. We show up to CE. We're all part of brokerages that have other agents in them. So not only like your SOI for investing isn't just people that are not in real estate. It's actually a really good thing because most agents have more real estate agent friends and more mortgage friends than they do other friends, right? Because we're in this industry, we talk to each other all the time, and like the real estate bubble becomes your world. Well, that's the negative if you're trying to get like a buyer client, because like your agent friends aren't going to typically refer you a buyer, but your agent friends might refer you an investment deal. So I talked about the example with the continuing education class, but it's very easy if you guys just rack your brain like every single time that you're co-broking with somebody or you're talking to another agent at an open house, are you using that as an opportunity to let that agent know the reasons why they should send you a deal, right? And I'm going to go into this more again in section 2, but like there's a reason why an agent would send you a deal. Like why would an agent in your sphere send you a deal? What's the benefit for them? What was that?
Quick sale.
A quick sale, yep. They don't have to market it. What else? They could list it on the back end potentially. They could get paid twice. You're probably not going to co-broke that, right? So let's just take that as the most simplistic thing, right? Again, very simple stuff today. But if I'm an agent and I get a listing and I have a 5% listing, typically, even if it's an investor deal, I'm going to put that on the MLS. My commission's going to get cut in half. If I bring it to somebody who's in this room, that commission doesn't get cut in half. So I'm literally making double, right? So there's an advantage to that agent to bringing you that deal. All right, so what else is free? I talked about door knocking. Door knocking, tried and true and effective way to do things. Door knocking is not that easy. It's somewhat difficult. For some people, they can discipline themselves to doing it. If you're gonna do it, you've got to do it every single week, right? Door knocking and cold calling to me are kind of like similar animals in that like they're not going to be the most fun things that you ever do, but they are effective if you do them every single day. So door knocking, cold calling, and cold texting, those would be like prospecting methods. They're all a little bit different. Obviously, if you're going to door knock, you're going to get out of your car, you're going to knock on a door, you're going to leave a door hanger behind, you're going to talk to people, eventually you're going to get a deal. I did a lot of that when I first started. I didn't have money for mailers. So I would walk door to door and most people weren't home. The people that were home, I would talk to them. The people who weren't home, I would leave a door hanger on the door. A door hanger is better than a mailer. Like they have to see the door hanger. Like, so it's more effective and it's pretty much free. Again, if you're an agent, this is going to get you more seller appointments. You're also going to get more seller appointments in general by doing this because a cash offer call to action is going to get you more interest. Like if I say, hey, let me tell you the value of your house. Well, number one, they can go on Zillow. Number two, they probably know another agent. But if I say, hey, let me make an offer on your home, people want to know what the offer is. So even if my best friend's a realtor, I still might call you for the offer. We get calls all the time. We go out to appointments. They want an offer from us. They say they already have an agent that they're going to use. Okay, great. We make the offer. Then they like us, and then they end up listing with us. We would have never even gotten that call if we said, hey, I'm a realtor. Let me tell you the value of your house. Because they would have just went up with that other person. Okay? So with the prospecting methods, getting back to that 5-step thing, you need to know, like, if you're going to door knock, how many doors do you need to hit in a week? If I'm going to cold call, how many calls do I make in a week? If I'm going to cold text, how many texts do I send in a week? What are the scripts, etc.? So backing it up, again, we need to start with those 5 steps to say, like, what do I need to achieve every week? How many appointments do I need to achieve? And then we need to think about like the strategies that we're going to implement in order to get those deals. So I want to talk briefly like about, you guys can kind of do this like all on your own, or you can leverage the stuff that we have like as part of the Inner Circle. How many people here know about the Inner Circle program? All right. So before I go into depth on how to like do all these strategies, I want to hit on just a couple of highlights here, because at a 2.5 hour event, like I wish that I could teach you guys everything I knew in 2.5 hours, but the reality is that every single person that's sitting here is going to need a little bit of a different plan. Because even if we just start with step number 1, where are we at today? Every single person in this room is different. Some people have money for marketing, some people don't. Some people have 40 hours a week they can spend. Some people have 5 hours a week they can spend. But then when we jump to week number 2 of like step number 2, it's like, well, where do we want to go? Every single person in this room is going to be in a different position. So a lot of people will ask me like, what's the best marketing strategy? I can never answer questions like that until I ask you 5 questions back to figure out what you're actually trying to accomplish, right? So I can give you a lot of different pointers, but they're not going to be specific enough, which is why like the Inner Circle program is so powerful, because it goes from you all listening to me and getting generalized information to me talking to you directly, like, Colleen, okay, you have a deal, let's go out on the appointment, let's talk about the appointment specifically. So that's a huge difference, because you guys can listen to podcasts, you can listen to webinars, you can come to my events all day long, but it's me understanding your personal situation is actually going to help you. So some high-level benefits of the program, and they're up here, and I'm not going to spend too much time, but I want to tie into like what we've already talked about. So you get 24/7, 365 access to me. Why is that important? Because even if you do what I just mentioned and you go through those 5 steps, you're going to have questions. You're going to have doubts. You're going to say, oh, I think my investment vehicle should be short-term rentals. But then after a conversation with me, you might change your mind, right? So you're going to have a lot of outline for yourself, but you're going to need individualized, personalized help, which is what we give you 24/7, 365 through Facebook Messenger and through email. Anybody who's already in the program can tell you like how responsive I am on that stuff. Like besides my kids, it's my business, right? So I'm available 7 days a week to answer questions, and it's a lifetime membership. Every coaching program I've ever been in is like, it's 6 months or it's 12 months. I talked in the beginning of this, like realistically, realistically, we're talking for most people in the room that this is going to be like a 20-30 thing. For most people in the room, like you tell me what your step 2 goals are, I'm probably going to say we're looking at 2028, 2029, 2030, 2031, 2032. What that means and why that's important is the access to me is unlimited forever. Because it's going to take longer than 3 months. It's going to take longer than 6 months. It's going to take longer than a year. The second thing that you get, again, related to like what we just talked about, is help with all these things, like the 5-step process, help going through it, help picking your investment vehicle, help picking your top 3 to 6 priorities, help picking what you should actually spend your time on. The second thing is the ability to partner with us on flips. So we already talked about the fact, actually, we got another guy partnering with us on a flip. You weren't here in the beginning, were you?
No, I got in a little late.
All right, good, because I'm always looking to, I gotta look for in-house, in-room testimonials. So,
Yeah, me too.
oh, there we go. We got a third one. So 120 Lindstrom Lane in Manchester, we're partnered with Mike. And with Mikkel, we got a 2-family in Avon going right now. So you get the ability to partner with us. All three of the deals that we talked about that are sitting in this room, and now I got to look around even more to make sure I didn't miss anybody else. But on average, they're going to be somewhere between $60,000 and $100,000 profits that we're going to split. So, like in the deal that we did with you, right, Mac? Like we went out on the appointment with you. Like we had a lot of crazy stuff go on with that deal, like facing foreclosure, all this good stuff. But we'll actually go on the appointments with people. We prefer to go on the appointments with people. So as we're sitting and talking about how to generate these off-market appointments, we're not just going to teach you how to get them. We want to go on the appointment with you. We want to go on the appointment with you to help you get it closed, because we feel like we have a better opportunity when we're out on the appointment with people. We're going to put up the money. We're going to do the construction. We're going to split the profits 50-50. It's reasonable, like if you're actually trying to do any of this stuff, to do 1 or 2 of these a year. It's reasonable. You could do more, but it's reasonable to say, like, if I do some of the stuff that we talked about today, that you're going to be able to do 1 or 2 or 3 of these in a year. What does that mean money-wise? Well, if you do 1, that's probably 30,000. 2, that's probably 60. 3, that's probably 100. Which means that you need to do 2 or 3 of these to buy another passive income property, which is really, again, what the end game everybody wants. I want to own assets that are working for me, etc. The third thing that we do is we do a once-a-month coaching call, where we go through, everybody gets a turn to kind of talk about what they need help with. It's the first Thursday of every month at either 10 or 11 o'clock every single month, and people on the inner circle are able to come on. Then we give everybody access to the systems that we have. So we're talking about, like, how do you generate these type of appointments? That's just one type of thing, right? Like, what dialer do you use? What records do you use? Where do you buy from? Like, we have everything kind of like systematized and written out because we've done all this stuff. What does the door hanger look like? We can go through like every single thing, and every single element that we teach on, we have documented, we have systematized, and we can literally give it to you and say, hey, this is how you do it. Right? So you have it, you have the document, you might have a video on how to do it, but then you have access to me 24/7, 365 to say, oh, I saw this in the systems package, how do I actually do X, Y, and Z? So there's a lot more kind of like benefits of being in the inner circle, and I don't want to spend all day kind of like talking through that, because that's not what this is all about. But I just wanted to mention it there, because if you're hearing like the first half of this kind of like day-to-day and you're still unclear about exactly what you should be doing, just understand that there's a lot more help that can potentially come with this. And I always say this, like, if you're motivated enough, you can always figure out how to do stuff on your own. But you're literally wasting your time by doing it. Because if you're doing it completely on your own, you're gonna make mistakes. Mistakes cost you time, they cost you money, and really, and I'm gonna talk about it just quickly, how you get into the inner circle is so easy that it would be a negative for you to try to do it on your own. So there's 3 ways to get into the inner circle. Every single person in this room can do it. I used to charge $60,000 for this program. I didn't like the fact that somebody needed $60,000 in order to do it, so I stopped. There's 3 easy ways to get in. Option number 1 is just to join our brokerage. It's free. You can transfer brokerages. Very simple. I've never really heard a good reason not to switch to our brokerage. I've heard a lot of bad reasons. I've heard a lot of reasons that don't make a lot of sense. But it's very easy to switch to our brokerage. We have close to 400 agents now. There's a reason we have 400 agents. Like, we're an independent brokerage. To get to 400 agents, we're delivering on our promises, okay? One thing to keep in mind, forget about joining our brokerage or not, that you have to think about. What is the most important thing to you, and are you taking action towards doing that? Is the most important thing to you to be a retail agent, to work with buyers and sellers, and to work forever doing that model? Or are you really trying to become financially independent? If you're really trying to become financially independent, you won't get there by becoming a retail agent. You're not going to.
It's very, very difficult. You're going to be like almost every retail agent, they're 70 years old, still selling real estate, still working 60 hours a week. If that's what you want to do, it's fine. But if you actually want to achieve financial freedom, you need to invest in real estate. So if your most important priority is to invest, then you have to figure out a way to get into the inner circle. So you could join our brokerage. We understand that not everyone's going to join our brokerage. There are reasons that are valid. I'm being a little bit, facetious, but there are reasons that do make sense sometimes to not join our brokerage, which is why we give two other options. The second way is to invest $10,000 into this program. It's my least favorite way of doing it. I would rather somebody, come to our brokerage for free. But if you say, hey, I can't leave my brokerage, broker's my best friend, I've heard, different various reasons that do make sense. You could just pay a flat $10,000 fee. And the third way to get in is to invest $50,000 or more into one of our apartment deals. Our apartment deals return between 10 and 20% rate of return. Again, I'm not going to go into much detail about that here. But if you have money in an IRA or money just sitting on the sideline, and you wouldn't mind earning 10 to 20% on that money, that could be a route for you to go, okay? So everybody in this room, I am confident, if you really want to, if it's important to you to achieve financial freedom, one of those three options will make sense and is doable. So we do have these forms, and on the back of the form is the information, right? Just has your contact information, how you would plan on joining. And if you are interested in doing that, after the session is over, fill those out and hand them to the back of the room, the guys in the back there. Just so you know, on all four options. So if you're thinking about joining our brokerage, you check that box. We're not going to go and we're not going to, switch you over on MLS today. We know that that's a conversation. It's a conversation that might take an hour. It might take 3 weeks. It might take 6 months. But whatever it is, we're going to have a conversation with you first to talk about the brokerage. Chris Martin, who's in the back, raising his hand, is the person that would be talking to you about that.
We could switch you over today, though. Just to be clear.
We could, and we often do at events like this. We know that everybody's in a different position with their brokerage. Somebody might, yesterday, they might have decided they're going to leave the brokerage they're at. Or they just might have no ties. But we understand either way, it's going to be a conversation. Related to the capital investing, that's going to be a conversation with me because we need to make sure that you're suitable for that type of investment. We'll go into detail about how the investment works. But again, what you really need to know is that it's a $50,000 minimum. It can be an IRA or it can be a bank account. The third way is the easiest. It's $10,000. If you check that box, we will take your $10,000 if that's the way you want to go, but we're probably going to ask, are you sure you don't want to consider the other two? If you don't, that's okay too. Any questions about the inner circle and how that works before I switch gears again? All right, so it is 12. Yes, sorry.
Sorry, it doesn't matter what kind of IRA.
Yeah, great question. It does matter, but you can always do it. So you need to have what's called a self-directed IRA. If you're already in a traditional IRA, you would work with a company that you can transfer your money. And most IRAs in the beginning do not have the ability to invest in real estate. In my opinion, regardless if you're going to invest with us or not, you're better off being in a self-directed IRA because you can use it for more options. So the way that this works, and I was a CFP, I was a CPA, so I understand the industry pretty well. Most of you are have been in 401ks. The 401k companies, they make money by locking you into funds that they run and they manage and they make fees on. It's not a bad thing, it's just how it's usually set up. Then when you transfer your money out after you've left the job, you're usually in a traditional IRA, which doesn't allow you to invest in real estate because, again, the financial institutions, they get no benefit from you investing in my deal. So they're gonna, by default, limit your options. When you go self-directed, now you have the ability to invest any way you want, and they're not as common because they're not promoted. Why are they not promoted? Because a Fidelity or an E-Trade or name the company, they can't make money that way. So like a company like Financial IRA or Intrust or whoever you're gonna use, like all they make is a few bucks a year, like managing that kind of process. All right, any other questions about the inner circle or anything that we've covered so far? All right, do you guys need like a 7 or 8 minute break before we go on to part 2? Yes, all right, let's take 7 or 8 minutes. It's 12:10. Why don't we say like 12:17? And again, if you guys are interested in the inner circle, fill out the forms and pass them back there.
I just sent you a long form message.
Yeah.
Just about like if I'm doing the right things and stuff.
Cool. All right, I'll take a listen. Thank you.
Bob, good afternoon.
Hey.
Bill Egan. I think I met you 10, 15 years ago.
Nice.
Jeff Rodman, does that name ring a bell?
Yeah.
We did some financing with you.
Yeah,
If you know
definitely.
the gentleman, somebody's father was involved. There was
Scott.
Scott.
Yeah.
3 of you.
Yeah.
I would be interested in talking to you folks about, I'm still working with Jeff. And we can, I don't know if we could help some of your folks get to where they want to go as far as providing financing. Is that something we could be of some assistance with?
Yeah, possibly.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm going to put something together and send you something or?
Yeah. Are you partners with them?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I go out and find deals for him. It's his money.
Oh, okay. Got it. Yeah, we still refer people.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, good. He's wonderful.
Yeah. No, we always had, a good experience. with
Yeah,
him.
I know.
We kind of ended up kind of like raising our own fund.
Yep.
So it's just like easier, but yeah, we still refer people.
Oh, good, good. And I keep in touch with you also regarding he'll send me out looking at things that you got a room full of people here that may need
Yeah.
that kind of help at some point in time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, definitely.
Nice seeing you.
Yeah, nice
You
to
look
meet you.
younger than when I last saw you.
No, I don't
Oh,
think
you
so.
look good. Thanks.
Call out George and Jared at some point.
Oh, yes, yes. I'll try to do that. Are they prepared to talk at all? Like if
I'll just give them a heads up that they're gonna talk for a couple minutes.
I think that would be better. Because, I have a feeling the battery might have died. Is that theirs? Yes.
We brought our stuff and sold it this morning. It sounded like it's working.
We have any double batteries. I think that's the problem.
Yeah, I just didn't know. Sorry. I
It's
didn't
okay.
know it turned off. I hope those are going. Should be fixed.
Cool, thank you.
Did you want the slide back on?
Yes. Hey,
Boy, Tom
what's going
Pemberton.
on? Yeah, I know who you are.
Yeah, listen,
I recognize you.
yeah. So, kids going all over the place, huh? And that's a great time.
I know.
I missed that already.
Well, you still have it, right?
Well, he's 17, so you know what I mean, and he's hurt right now, so he can't play football. Yeah, he tore his labrum. Slight shit. Yeah, but that's not really how he hurt it. He slid into second base on turf in the summer. So he's junior.
Okay.
But we let him play football even though he didn't have surgery, and he just hurt it the other day again. So yeah, it sucks. And then he drives now, so I don't even I don't have those car rides anymore. No, I can't.
Yeah, I guess that's what happened.
Yeah, the coach is terrible.
Yeah, I fixed it. I didn't know what it had gone
Yeah,
on.
it's terrible. I actually applied for them
Oh, okay.
because they're all down here. They're all on 1 year contracts.
Yep.
So I threw my hat in the ring last year, not this year. And I had an interview with them and everything, and they said to me, "Why do you want to coach?" I said, "Because that's what I do." I said, all your kids on your JV and varsity, that will be in your programs, I've coached. I've done the circle. And they said, well, teachers got preference. That's a big problem. That's a big problem with the contracts in high schools.
So is he planning to play after high school?
No.
Done after that?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I drove by last spring. I drove by a men's softball league. We're going home. And I said, "You see that place right there?" He goes, "That's what you'll be, just like everybody else." I'm a realist. I tell it like it is with him. Yeah, he's not going to college either. He is. He hates school.
Okay.
And always has since he was been this big.
Yeah.
So he's in matter of fact, he's a welder. He's doing welding in high school. So that's why he's probably doing the union or something like that.
I was just I follow what you post.
Yeah.
I saw him he's throwing nice.
Yeah. Well, in the off season he was in Fall. I took him to Fall River. Yeah.
So he could have at least played
Division 2.
Yeah.
And you know what the sad part about it? He doesn't like pitching. See, he's been a kid that's he doesn't like the attention. He doesn't want the. So if you're up on the mound, everybody's looking at you.
Yeah, I would. I'm the same way.
You told me that a long time ago.
Not in sports.
Yeah, your kids out there. I mean, your hockey, that's a tough sport. Not yet, but you're going to be in that.
So, I had a game 7:00 on Saturday. We went around Saturday at 5:30. And it doesn't bother me as much as I dread it because I know it's too early for them.
Yeah. That's the only time they can get ice time, right? That's the thing.
Yeah. Well, it's all variable. I mean, younger kids kind of get whatever's left over. It could be late. It could be early.
So you get the 3 boys?
I got 3 boys.
Yeah, and your dog, right? And they all hockey?
So my youngest is 3. And
He's too young.
He's doing learning skate though. So
So you're gonna have 3 hockey.
yeah.
Woo! You better keep doing your thing, but that's an expensive sport. 40.
For everything. So I do a lot.
Yeah. You want them to be the best. I know, because you're insane like the rest of us.
Yeah.
In a good way.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's I was just having a conversation with my partner on the way here. Why are we here? Why do we care?
Yeah, because they're probably not going anywhere afterwards. I know, because you're nuts. Like we are. Like Bill's the same way, right?
Yeah.
His kid's baseball. I talked to him a little bit about
He's
that.
really into baseball. His kids are. I don't want to make I would say. But even still, he would be. And I
You
know
know how hard that is?
Oh, yes. Oh, I'm saying
Even more harder than hockey.
hard
Because they go to juniors. You have to go to juniors before they make any. You go to play college, but it's the juniors.
juniors and pulling. If you look at my father-in-law has season tickets to BU, and when I first started learning about it, I look at the roster, Sweden, Czechoslovakia, wherever. 2/3 of the kids are American.
It's just people don't understand how difficult it is.
It's fun though.
I enjoy it.
The thing that everybody tells me is if you're not having fun in it now, then the future is probably not going to be happening.
Yeah.
So then don't even do it. But if you're having fun in the moment,
And if in the 1 out of 1,000 chance, maybe they D1 or whatever, like.
And even if they listen, you have to understand. Well, they have to understand. They can't. They're used to. If you're good, they're used to playing all the time. You go play these D1 schools, there's a good chance you're not going to play right away.
So his coach, played at UMass.
Oh, Division 1. Then came back.
No, then he had to play D3.
Yeah,
He finished up
Yeah.
D3.
happens all the time.
I looked up the stats, because he told me that. D1, he just got a healthy scratch for most of the games. D3 scoring like 50 goals a year.
Yeah, big difference. But he gets to play. He had a great time.
Oh, yeah.
Lifelong friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, I told my kid to play D3
Yeah.
like today in high school.
Yeah.
But you don't want to hear that.
No, I know.
Like,
It's still fun. He's talking to you. Yeah. All right.
All right, guys, thank you for coming back. So before we jump back into the exact strategies, right? Because we've already talked about the fact that, we need 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 10 appointments a week. Does anybody have any questions now that we've had like 10 minutes to digest some of the information from this morning? Any questions at all? I just want to make sure, number one thing I want to do anytime I have an event is I want to make sure that people leave feeling like not only did I get good information, but I got my questions answered. So is there anything that anybody wants me to stop, answer, go into more detail on now before I go back into my dialogue? Yeah, go ahead. Yep. Is that what? So, yeah, that's a great question. So the question was, do we need to be part of the inner circle in order to do the 50-50 deals? And this is what I'll tell everybody. First of all, there's a lot more to the inner circle than doing the 50-50 deals. I truly believe that, like, if you're serious about achieving financial freedom, you should be in the inner circle. But the direct answer to that is, if you're in the inner circle, we're going to be able to go on appointments with you. I cannot tell you like how invaluable us going on the appointments are. It is a common misconception that yes, I'm a real estate agent and I can get a listing appointment. Therefore, I can go on a seller appointment and lock down a deal like this. What we found in most cases is that agents don't know how to have these conversations because they're just different conversations that they're not used to. So most of the time, when we go on an appointment as an investor and an agent goes up against us, we usually beat them. So you would not get that. And then the other thing I would say to it is, if somebody brings us a deal and it's a killer deal and they're not in the inner circle, like, am I going to turn down money? Probably not. But if you're in the inner circle, I'm going to guarantee that we're going to do that deal. Like, even if it's like an okay deal, like we're going to do that deal. If you're not in the inner circle and we're at full capacity with construction, because you have to understand there's only so many of these we can do in a year. So if we get to a point where we're busy enough and someone's not in the inner circle, that's going to be the first person that we say, I'm sorry, we're too busy, like we can't do it. But I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say if we have full capacity and we can do a deal that we might still do it. But I would just take even a step back and say, like, what would be the reason that I wouldn't want to be in the inner circle and get all the other benefits? And that would be the thing I would be like more interested in that conversation. All right, does anybody have anything else? Yes.
I have two questions. One, on average, how many deals do you typically do a year? Like, through the inner circle, like 2022, what do you?
So we only started rolling this out 6 months ago. But since we've rolled it out, we're doing almost one every other week. So like 2 a month, basically. And what we're finding is that we're getting between 2 and 4 of these opportunities a week. What we're actually finding, though, is that there's a very high closing rate when an agent brings us a deal. Reason being is that in most cases, like, they're not shopping it. They're going to that agent and like they're looking for a cash offer and we're gonna make a competitive cash offer. So our closing ratio when it's like a cold lead and we're going out on that appointment and there's no connection is about 10%, but it's more like 50-50 when the agent refers us the deal. What was question 2?
I guess the next question was if you're a part of the inner circle, and I guess what, like, if I was to come to you and like, Tom, I have a deal and like, you vet person.
Yep.
What's the process? Like, is there like a vetting process that you need to like, hey, can you go tomorrow?
Yeah, so what's the vetting process if somebody brings us a deal and they're in the inner circle? To be honest with you, there hardly is one on purpose. Like, I'm not very big, if somebody says, I wanna sell my house, I don't need anything else other than that. Like, I wanna go on that appointment. I'm not a big fan of like vetting seller appointments to too much extent. And the reason it's gonna be kind of a funny reason is because most people lie. Like, half the people that tell us they're motivated to take a cash offer aren't. Like, they're selling me on why they're gonna take a cash offer and then we get out there and it's like they just wanna save on a commission. And then the other half, they're like embarrassed or they're afraid they're gonna get taken advantage of, so they're gonna say, don't lowball me. And then we go out there and make a cash offer and they take it. So most sellers are not used to dealing with cash buyers, so they don't know what to say or what to do. As long as I know that they, like, yes, if they tell me I'm not moving for 7 years, do I want to go out on that appointment? No. But if they tell me like I'm considering selling in the next year, and we have capacity, so we have 6 full-time salespeople that go out on the road. So when somebody tells us they have an appointment, typically we can do same day. Worst case, next day, but usually we can do same day. All right, so if there's no other questions, I want to introduce our sponsors really quickly. Having sponsors allows us to host these events for you guys for free. These events cost us probably about $5,000 each, somewhere around that, between hotel and food and everything else. So I want to have our sponsors introduce themselves. Jared, probably don't want to jump on the mic, but you're going to have to right now. So here you go.
On the mic. Thank you for having us, Tom. My name is Jared Yagin, Vice President of DiVigilio Insurance. I've spent the last 15 years of my life in the insurance world on both personal lines and commercial lines, meeting needs for individuals and businesses alike. And so I've worked with Tom and Bill for the last couple of years, some of their insurance needs, as well as assisting their agents for their needs as well as client needs. And we have solutions for every type of situation you may find yourself in, whether that is as a real estate agent, as an investor, as an individual for your personal insurance needs. It's one of those things that the last few years have been kind of tight. Everybody has probably seen increases year over year on insurance, and it's important to have someone that you work with that you trust, that has options that are the top options in the state with all of the carriers that you may need, and provides you with some creative solutions when needed, but also there to answer your questions if it's just, you know, a random question for a project that you might be considering. So as Tom mentioned, you can see us at these events, any Asian investor event, we're always here. I'm typically the one who's here. And so if you have any insurance questions or concerns, feel free to bounce it off for me. Could be the most random thing off the wall, but I've probably heard it before. So please use this as a resource. No obligation. Any questions are welcome. Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Tom.
Hey, so George Beaches from Movement Mortgage. I partnered up with Tom and his companies about 7-8 months ago. Just a little personal background on me, since I feel like Jared mentioned, you know, you have to have trust in the partners that you work with. But I have a 7, a 5, and a 2-year-old. I've been doing this for 19 years now. I bought my first piece of real estate 20 years ago before I started doing lending. As far as trust goes, I just got back from Maine last week with my kids, and my wife stayed back home for the first time since we've had our firstborn, which is kind of crazy, but I realized how difficult it is to raise kids. And it goes back to trusting the people that you work with, business and personal, right? So I couldn't do what I do without her. She takes care of them all week long, and it allows me to be the best version of me at what I do in mortgage lending. I always hone in on two key things. That's partnerships and consistency. I'm 24/7. I'm very knowledgeable about what I do, and I'm always there. So I'm at Cameron every single week on Wednesday, every other week on Fridays, and I'm here whenever you guys need me. I know a lot of you guys aren't retail agents and more so wholesalers and just looking to invest and flip. You can utilize me not only on purchases, but I have all kinds of great loan options. The most popular one right now with the ability not to get loans because the rates are so high is the debt service coverage ratio loan. So I've heard this come up a few these events that I've been at, and basically what it is if you don't qualify because you have variable income, you just became an agent, maybe you're not making enough commissions to buy that 3-family that you know is an unbelievable deal, and you want to hold it long term, not just flip it. All we care about is your credit score, as long as it's over 700, and as long as the rents on the subject property are greater than the mortgage payment, you get the loan. You have to have maybe 3 to 6 months reserves, but we do not care about income. We do not care if you have $40,000 a month in mortgage payments. It's kind of crazy, but it's kind of like a commercial loan for residential real estate. And there's all kinds of different options like that. So, anyways, nice to meet you all.
Yeah, the only other thing I'm just gonna say, both of them just gave their kind of like elevator talks, whatever you want to call it. It's just, working with people that understand investing. It's definitely a different animal, both with lending, and with insurance. And, just to give you kind of like an illustration on the insurance side, when you start to invest, you start to, in general, you live in your own single family house, you typically don't have a whole lot of insurance problems, but we've had 2 houses completely burned down that we've owned. One rental property, a 3-family in Peabody, and then we did a single family fix and flip in Malden. We were done renovating. The contractors that did the flooring left the flooring stuff, with the chemicals right outside of the house. Sun caught it, whole house went up on fire. And you don't realize how important insurance is until you actually have an issue. And in general, just dealing with your own personal residency, it's not common to have those type of problems. But it definitely changes when you start doing a lot of investing. The 3-family in Peabody, it was just a tenant's kid. They were 9 years old. They got a hold of a lighter and they lit the curtains on fire. Not, I don't think purposely, but they were just fooling around. 9-year-old kid and the whole house went up. Luckily, in both cases, no one was hurt. And then with what George mentioned, there's a lot of investing-based products that if you guys are investing or you're working with clients to invest, you want to talk to a lender that understands the investing landscape. We don't talk probably enough about lending and how to structure lending, mostly because my partner handles most of it. It's not my area of expertise, but creative financing and understanding how to get deals done that way is kind of a probably underrated way of accumulating wealth. Because he mentioned, if you're under the impression I need to have a certain amount of income to get a loan, and then a lender who understands how to get these deals done in a different way, that's just one of many examples. So I would encourage you guys, to talk to them when you have a chance, and definitely form relationships with vendors who understand investing. All right, so now getting back into, the meat of what we're going to talk about today, which is how do we actually get these appointments? And I talked about it, really at a high level. And it all does start with understanding what you're trying to target. Because if we talk, and I'm going to start with paid marketing. So if we start with things like mailers and pay-per-click and TV and radio and all this other big stuff, unless we actually know the types of properties we're trying to buy, it's kind of tough to tell you even what to do. So if you don't know your investing strategy, it always starts there. Because again, this is going to be a very simplistic thing, but if you don't know that your investing vehicle is short-term rentals and you want short-term rentals in Maine, then how can I tell you how to mail? Because it's going to be a little bit different based on what you're actually trying to achieve. But let's kind of pretend like you actually know exactly what you want. And let's pretend like we just understand that it's going to cost us about $10,000 to get a deal. I'm going to walk you guys through some of the high-level concepts of how to do all this stuff. So first I want to talk about mailing, because it's definitely the most tried and true method. It's not a perfect method. It's a common one. It's one that a lot of people do. And I'm going to talk about high level kind of how to do it. So first you want to know what your property avatar is. Like you need to be really specific with mailing, obviously, because you literally need to know where that letter is going. So you want to start out first understanding the type of property that you're getting, and then you want to build a database. So some important things to know about getting off-market properties. First of all, equity is hugely important. Like if somebody has a 90 LTV, if someone's house is worth $500,000 and they have a 450 mortgage, they can't sell to you at a discount. Like it's not actually possible. So there's certain things when you're building a database that are really important, and mortgage is one of them. Like we know throughout doing the thousands of deals that we've done, not thousands, but probably a little bit over 1,000 deals that we've done, who sells to us? Like what are the attributes of that person? So again, if somebody has a 450 mortgage on 500 house and we need to pay 375, like they're not going to come out of pocket to sell to us. So when we're building a database like that to mail or call or text or whatever, we need to start out by saying how much equity do they need to have? In my opinion, you only want to target like at least 60 LTV or lower. Maybe you could go 50. I mean, it depends on how big you want that list to be, but they have to have enough equity so that they can sell to you, still put a couple bucks in their pocket and feel good about it. So equity is the most important variable when it comes to figuring out like who you're going to target. And if we even relate that to door knocking or calling or whatever, like that means that if you're going to door knock and you're specifically looking for investing deals, you can't door knock every house, because probably 8 out of 10 of those houses don't have enough equity for you to actually buy. And again, in this market, you're just not going to find somebody who's like, yeah, I don't have enough equity to sell to you, but I'm going to take $50,000 out of my bank account to do it. Like it almost doesn't exist. It's so rare that I would not focus on it. So how do you find equity? So there's a bunch of companies that you can use. I can guarantee that a lot of people in this room use a variety of different companies. They tend to all pull data from the same source. The company that I use that I recommend is called ListSource. You know, it's supposedly the best. We get records for about 4 cents a record when we pull records. We buy in bulk. We just did 500,000 records, 600,000 at 4 cents each. So we just spent $24,000 just to get the records, okay? But the filters that we put on them, we say first equity. Second thing is how long has somebody lived in a house? In general, somebody doesn't buy a house in 2021 and then sell it at a discount in 2023. Like someone buys a house in 2021, their thought is, do they think they have equity or do they think their house went down in value? Right? They probably think they have like $1 million in equity after these past 2 years. So mentally, like even though someone maybe in 2019 or 20 or 21 could sell to an investor, most of the time they don't. So we like to make lists of people that have lived in their house for 10 plus years. And really the longer that they've lived in the house, the more the probability is that they might sell to you, right? The longer that they've lived in the house, the more deferred maintenance there probably is, the more equity they have, the more maybe having an easy sale is going to make sense. So we like to have 10 plus years. We also like to look only at houses that were built before 1980. Could somebody who has a built house or a condo built in 1990 sell it to you? Yes, but the odds go way down. And I think logically we would all understand why. Like there's much more logic to somebody who has an 1880 house selling to an investor than someone who has a 1980 house. Pretty simple, right? Like their house is probably going to be in better condition. Then we want to look at like what type of property are we trying to do? And this goes into like, this is why the inner circle's valuable, because for everybody, the exact type of property that they like is going to be a little bit different. People ask us all the time, like, hey, would you buy a house in Lexington and tear it down and put up a $2.5-3 million house? No, don't want to do it, hate it, like won't do it. But there are plenty of people who want to do that. So again, like you need to know exactly what your plan is to figure out how to build your list. We have somebody that's in the inner circle that only wants to do Reading, and he's doing deals in Reading, and we're helping support him to do deals in Reading. That means that in general, he's probably going to have to do a lot of bigger value add things, like adding additions or like making houses like really, really nice. That's going to change for the list what he's targeting. Like for me, personally, I want to do kind of like cookie cutter entry level homes. Like if a house is bigger than 2,500 square feet, I'm not targeting it. I might do it if somebody brings me the deal, but I'm not targeting it. So what I'm going after, just to give you guys an example, is like 800 square feet to maybe like 2,200 square feet, like nice entry level homes. Like that's what we like to do. Quick turns, be in and out quickly. But again, this goes back to you specifically. What are you gonna do? Like, what do you want to do? Like, there are people that want to do those knockdown, $2-3 million homes. There are people who want to do big value add projects in the higher end towns. There are people who want to do condo conversions. There are people who want to do short-term rentals. So again, going back to the 5 steps, you need to figure that out. The other thing that we put as a filter for us is 50 plus years of age for the seller. Why does that matter? Well, it's crazy because like when I first started pulling these filters, I was like, wow, 50 is so old. Now I'm 41. I'm like almost in my filter. But it's kind of interesting because like I thought in my head, I was like, well, maybe 45-year-olds would sell to us. Like, because that's getting like, up there, right? Like, but now that I'm almost there, I'm like, nobody really does sell to us under 50. And the reason is simple, like you're in a different phase of life. Like every phase of your life changes, right? Like I'm in a different phase in life. Like if you talked to me 7 or 8 years ago, I'd be like, yeah, everybody should work 100 hours a week, right? Then I had kids. Now I'm like, oh, no one should work 100 hours a week. So like it changes, like everything, like your values literally change. I'm sure everybody would agree with this, right? So most of the people that sell to us, like there's a common misconception that we go out there, we rip people off, the house is worth 500, we tell them it's worth 200 and they just believe us. That's not reality, right? It doesn't even make sense in 2023. Everybody has Zillow, everybody knows what their estimate is. We provide a service. The service that we provide is we make things simple for people. We make things easy for people. That's what they're buying, right? So somebody who's like 38, 35, 32, they don't want simple, easy convenience. They want the most amount of money because they're in a different life phase. As you get older, different priorities, right? So you could be 62 years old, maybe your spouse just passed away, like I'm just throwing out a scenario, and you want to get into a 1-level house in Florida. And the thought of you going through a traditional sale is giving you anxiety. So you want simple. Like this is I could give a million examples, but that's why age matters for when we're selecting records. Because in general, even 50 is on the younger side. Again, kind of like as you're going a little bit older, the convenience means more to you. And you probably have more equity. Like the person that paid $27,000 for their ranch, like it's worth $500,000 right now. Whether they get 400 or 500, it might not even have any impact on their life. But the ability that they have to just sell to us and pick a closing date that might matter a whole heck of a lot. So that's another filter that we put on. And this is, again, building this database is the same whether you're mailing, cold texting, cold calling, door knocking, whatever. Like any prospecting method that you use, you first have to start with a list. Does that make sense? Any questions on building a list? So a list is an example. We talked about the 5 steps. Building a list is an example of step 4, which is choose your top 3 to 6 priorities. For a lot of people in this room, building a list could be a really good like Q4 priority. It is definitely something that matters a lot because that list will then be who you prospect to for a long time. So if you're going to mail, people ask postcards versus mailers versus this versus that. The most important thing is not the mail piece, it's the consistency of actually getting that message to your person in their mailbox. Postcards work, mailers work, fancy mailers work, plain mailers work, doesn't really matter. It's about getting that message in front of them every couple of months. So on average, you want to mail people every other month. So if you're gonna mail people every other month, that means you're basically gonna be in front of them like all the time throughout the year. So at any point throughout the year, if they're thinking about selling, they at least know that you want to buy their house. Does that make sense? There's not a lot else to mailing. People want to complicate it. It's not a very complicated thing. It's about consistency, about spending that $10,000 and doing it over and over again. One last thing I will add on mailing though, and with prospecting in general, is that there are certain cities that have more distress than others. And the cities that have more distress are going to produce more investing deals, okay, percentage-wise. Now you could, like, what's the highest end city around here? I'm on the north, but give me a high-end city.
High-end?
Yeah.
Duxbury.
Duxbury, perfect city. I've done one house in Duxbury in 15 years. Very hard to do a deal in Duxbury. Not impossible, but you're gonna have to spend more than $10,000 to get one deal in Duxbury. Let's reverse that and bring it to like Brockton, right? The exact opposite, right? You might actually be able to spend a little bit less in Brockton to get a deal. This matters a lot. It matters more than you think. If you don't know, like, again, what areas to target, that's a good question for me. Like if you're in the inner circle, that definitely matters. Like we've spent a lot of money in a lot of towns in New England that have produced us almost nothing, that we've definitely lost money on. Thinking that like, hey, if we mailed them enough, we'll get a deal. It just doesn't work out that way, okay? Any questions on mailing before I move on to the other page?
What are towns that you get a lot of?
So the easiest way to figure out how to get the most deals is go on Wikipedia, go per capita income for the state you want to mail in, and reverse order it. Lowest capita income to highest capita income. It's almost an exact like production of how many deals you'll get. Yes.
Do you recommend any like blended strategy of like cold calling, getting some sort of lead, and doing the mailing?
Yeah, the question was, do we recommend a blended strategy of calling plus mailing, etc.? I don't think there's any extra benefit. Like you don't get more of a benefit. Like if you call and say, did you get my letter in the mail? They're gonna be like, I got 10 letters in the mail, who are you? So there's no like value extra, but what I will say about it is there needs to be so many, if you think about it in terms of impressions, like how many times does somebody have to see your message to book an appointment? So if we need to spend, $1,000 to get an appointment, that means we're sending like 2,000 letters. So that we need 2,000 impressions. So that's probably 2,000 phone calls, 2,000 door knocks, 2,000 mailers, like in total. So if you say I want to get one appointment, could you do 1,000 letters and 1,000 calls? Yes. But but like, I don't think there's any extra value. It's not like combined, they reduce the number of like contacts that you need. Yeah.
How often do you update?
Great question. So how often do you update the lists? There's how often we have and how often you should. I would say every 2 years is good, because usually so in a year, things will sell. So it's hard because it costs money and time to update lists. So I just said we spent whatever it was, $25,000 to update our lists. But when you update your list, you're gonna pull out sold properties. If you don't update your list, you could mail somebody that just sold. So I would say absolute best practice would be 1 year. And I would say that every 2 years is probably okay. And I think more than that, and you're gonna run into some inefficiencies. All right, so switching to the other paid. Other paid methods, pay-per-click, paid calling, paid texting, TV, radio, billboards. I'm gonna hit TV, radio, and billboards first, just because, you guys are here and it's worth crossing off your list. So TV, radio, billboards, super expensive. If you don't have a $10,000 a month budget, don't even think about it. And even if you do, TV, radio, billboards are less impactful than the other strategies we're gonna talk about today. So we did a bunch of TV in 2022. One of the reasons we did it wasn't even necessarily for lead gen, but for branding on the mailers that we send. So if somebody gets our letter and they see me on TV, that gives a little extra oomph to it. But it's not uncommon for a TV, radio, or billboard lead to cost $5,000 compared to $1,000 in the other methods. So I'm just mentioning it quickly, just so that if you get the idea in a week from now, oh, I know Tom talked about mailing, but I'm thinking about doing billboards. Don't do it. Unless you just have money to burn, or you have a really good vision of some branding strategy that's gonna pay off long into the future. All right, so that gets to the other paid. Pay-per-click is another one that's a really good lead gen strategy. So if you Google "sell my house fast," will probably come up. You click on our ad, it's gonna cost me whatever, it probably cost me $500, $600, $700 for a pay-per-click lead. The pros of a pay-per-click lead as opposed to a mailer is that when somebody goes online, opens up their computer and says "sell my house fast," do you think they're motivated? They did it, right? We didn't contact them, they contacted us. So they're more motivating on average than most other types of leads because they reached out to us. The only problem with pay-per-click is that you're gonna get a variety of different leads. So if you have a very specific type of property and location that you like, these leads aren't gonna work out very well for you because you could get a mobile home, then you can get a 2-family, then you can get a single family, all over the geographic radius. So if you know, I want to flip single families in Reading, Mass, pay-per-click is not going to be a good strategy because 99% of the leads will not be from the town that you want. So mailing and calling and texting, they're very, very specific. You can reach exactly who you want, whereas pay-per-click is going to be very general but motivated. We like pay-per-click because we can process anything. We can flip a mobile home, or we can flip a 3-family. We can go to Brockton, or we can go to Manchester, New Hampshire. We can do that as a company. We have the ability to do it. If you don't, then that's not going to be a great lead source for you. Then there's the free ways that you can pay people to do, paid calling and paid texting. So there's a lot of services and a lot of people that will do this. Somebody asked me about this the other day on our inner circle call, hey, instead of me calling, can I pay someone to call? Yes, you can if you've done it. So the biggest thing I see that's a mistake in small businesses is people hiring someone to do something they don't know how to do. It's actually kind of laughable when you really think about it. I've done it, by the way. But like literally, I'm hiring somebody to do something I don't know how to do, and then I'm expecting them to do it well. Like I don't know how to train somebody, but I hope that they're good at it. Like it's not gonna work. So the only way I would pay someone to cold call or cold text is if like you've been doing it for like 2 months, you know exactly what you need to do, you know the scripts, you know who to call, you know how to use the dialer, you know how to handle objections, and you can literally teach somebody how to do it. If you don't know how to do that, this goes for every area in your business. Like if you hope that you're gonna hire somebody, especially somebody like that's in a different country, to do something well that you don't know how to do, like you're just gonna burn money. You're gonna burn money doing that. Any questions on that before I get to free marketing or time marketing? So with paid marketing, obviously you're just spending money in order to get appointments. So we have a pretty good sized marketing budget that we built up over time. We didn't have a big marketing budget to start. We started small. Like I started, door knocking, and I remember like printing mailers, like at the computer at my house, stuffing the envelopes. Like we kept taking like progressions up, and the more that you can spend, the more time that you're gonna save. But if you're spending money, obviously you need to get a return on that investment. All right, so going to the free stuff in more detail. So we talked about like contacting your SOI and making sure your SOI knows that you're looking for deals, okay? So the first place I would always start is social media, because social media is by far the easiest. It's something we can all do. It's simple and it works. So how many people here are like actively growing their social media? Like, and I don't mean like a business page, but their personal accounts. Like who's actively doing that? Okay, so like, a third of the room, maybe 25% of the room, that's definitely a no-brainer. I mean, it does not take a lot of time to like request like 10 or 15 people a day to join your account. I do that. Like who here has connected? Who here have I connected with? Like I've sent the invite. Okay, like I've done that, right? Like, I'm actually doing that. I do that every single day. So I have 5,000 friends on Facebook, not because 5,000 people like me, but because I've probably requested 20,000 people, and 5,000 of those 20,000 people like me, right? So I add every single day. Like I'll add. So Facebook has limits. And I'm talking Facebook specifically. I know people can use other platforms. I do believe Facebook is the best one. But I add people every single day. I add 15 or 20 people every day, and I send them a Facebook message every single day. 10 or 15 requests, 20 requests, 10 or 15 or 20 Facebook messages every single day. I do it on LinkedIn too. And that's something that everybody in this room can do. I do have a VA do that for me now, but I used to have to do it on my own. And like my target audience is agents. Okay, so everyone's target audience is going to be a little bit different. But like I go in agent Facebook groups, and that's who I add, right? Because I'm trying to push people into my Facebook groups. So I want people that I know like Facebook groups, friend request them, send them a message every single day. So depending, like I had a call with an agent who lives in my town of Melrose, and she was talking to me about how do I build a listing-based business in Melrose, which, I mean, it's funny because I've probably never listed a house in Melrose, but I can tell her exactly what to do. And she should be in the Melrose community pages doing the exact same thing that I'm doing. Like if you want to build a listing-based business in Melrose, then you need to be talking and connecting with people who live in that town. That's an easy thing that you can do on social media, right? And there's no reason why everyone in this room can't do that. In fact, most people who are sitting here are actually probably friends with people that they're not even connected with on social media. Talk about low-hanging fruit. At the end of the day, whether you're trying to get listings or buyer clients or investing deals through your SOI, like they have to remember you. And social media is the lowest hanging fruit in order to do that, right? Like, is there anybody in this room that's on social media less than like a half an hour a day? Like, yeah, Steve. You're an outlier, my friend. But
I only went on Facebook so I could message you.
oh, well, there you go. See, I'm actually helping Facebook. They should be paying me. But it's rare. Like most people have checked social media since they've been here for something, right? So people are on it. So you're legitimately getting like free advertising every day. Every time you post, you're going to get free advertising. And like I've turned my account into professional mode, which means I can see how many people see my posts. And every day, probably at least 1,000 people will see what I posted for free, right? And that took me almost no time. So depending on who you're trying to target, what towns you're trying to target, like you can add 10 or 15 or 20 people a day, and you've got to be posting, multiple times a week. Yep.
Do that for your personal or your business profile?
Great question. And a very misunderstood thing. Facebook business accounts are garbage. They are garbage. Nobody goes on them. They're never gonna go on them. Like spending time building up a Facebook business page and asking your friends to like it when they don't wanna like it. They don't wanna like it. They don't. What's there for them? You posting about like a stat, an NAR stat from like 3 weeks ago, like they don't wanna see that. What do they wanna see? So what's gonna happen when they do you the favor of accepting your invite to your business account? They're never going back there. At best, they're liking that page. And the only way they're seeing anything on that page is if you've boosted and paid Facebook. Only way. Now, compare that to your personal account, which people want to see your personal stuff. They do. Am I wrong? Like, that's why everyone's on it. They want to see your dog. They want to see your cat. They want to see where you went on vacation. People are snoopy, right? They want to know what you're doing. So that's where they're looking. They're never going to go on your business account, ever, 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 ever. There's nothing compelling on your business page. I can promise you that. So you have to have a good blend of like your personal life and your business life. I don't do it perfectly, but I promise you, like for people that are friends with me, you'll see like I'm posting about both. People probably feel like they know me when they really don't, but they see both. That's easy to do. Anybody can do this. Anybody can add 10 or 15 people a day and then post a few times a week. It's a simple thing. It takes 5 minutes. That's why I'm calling it low-hanging fruit. Because there's somebody in your SOI this year that will sell discounted to an investor. But are you going to be the person that they remember? Most of the time, the answer is no, right? But if they knew that you were an outlet that you could provide them with an offer, you're going to get more opportunities. Does that make sense? If you're not sure what to post, a couple of simple rules, getting back to kind of the business page thing, like nobody wants to see like boring stuff. Like when I say that, like nobody cares about the statistics about anything. Like again, they're not on Facebook for that stuff. They're not on Facebook for an infographic or, for you to remind them about spring cleaning or like whatever. Like it's garbage. Like it's literally garbage. And like if you're buying something from like a company that's selling you like pre-programmed posts, like again, think about yourself. Like, would you want to see that? If you were your friend, would you want to see that? No, you wouldn't. So it has to be something that's somewhat related to you that they're going to be interested in some capacity, right? And when I look, and if you switch to professional mode, you can literally see like the engagement. And if you repost an NAR stat, you will see 3 people saw it, and if there was a dislike button, there would be 3 dislikes. And Facebook knows that. Facebook's algorithm actually knows when somebody likes what you see, what you posted. And when people aren't engaging on it, they just don't show it. Okay? So does all of that stuff make sense? So you just need to be in front of them consistently, like with the message that like, hey, I can not only list your house, I can buy your house. Like I can make an offer on your house. And there's a lot of different ways that you can post to get engagement. But if you look and you like, my account, or there's a million other people that do it better than me, like what type of posts you're getting like 50 likes, 100 likes, 20 comments. That's what you're looking for, right? And you don't need to be creative. You don't need to be very creative. You can modify their post 2% and probably get the same exact engagement. All right, so with your sphere though, like it isn't just about social media. It's also about like emailing and mailing as well. So the most high impact mailers you can do are mailers to your SOI. So I know this is like real estate 101, build a database, use a CRM, email people, like all that stuff. But it's the same exact thing for investing, right? Continuing to add people, feed your database, mail those people, email them. Again, not canned emails, not home action, not something that they're gonna just unsubscribe from. The better job you can do of sending like somewhat engaging, interesting content, the more likely they are to read it and the more likely you are to get business. All right, any questions on SOI? All right, getting back to that database. So you've decided exactly who you're trying to target. You have a list. You don't want to mail because you don't have the money or you don't want to spend the money. Okay, so what are 3 other options? Door knocking, cold calling, and cold texting. Which one do you choose? You should choose the one that you're going to do every day that like isn't going to make you like throw up before you do it. Whatever one that is the one you should pick. If you don't mind like hiding in a corner and calling all day, that's what you should do. If you don't mind responding to text messages, that's what you should do. If you like seeing people face to face, you should door knock. If you absolutely like want to door knock, but you can't get yourself to talk to people, just do door hangers. Anybody can do that. Anybody can leave a door hanger on the door. I will accept an excuse about being afraid to door knock someone's door, but like I will not listen to anybody have an excuse why you can't leave a door hanger on someone's door. Every human has the ability to do that. But which one you do is going to be depending on which one you are willing to do 5 days a week. This gets back to like the eat the frog concept. Like this needs to be the first thing you do every day. Like not checking the email, like not looking for an extension on a deal, you know, not dealing with the co-broke that's giving you like a bunch of crap about something that you don't need to hear about. Like, no, like this needs to be your first priority. Simple as that. There's no excuse. Like if you absolutely have to start your day earlier, right? Real estate agents, what time do they wake up at? Like 11 o'clock? So you like if you start at like 9, you have 2 hours, you have a 2 hour like window, right? I'm only kidding, obviously, but I seriously do mean that like if you do get up earlier and start earlier, I promise you from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m., you're not getting these like distraction things. Because people like literally are starting their day and they're not sending these messages. So if it needs to be like literally first thing in the morning, then do it first thing in the morning. But it can be at any time, but you need to block that out. So again, getting back to like having a scorecard, you need to look to make sure you did those activities every day. If it's 500 calls in a week, that means you have to do 100 calls a day. Like you don't end your day until you've done 100 calls, period. Simple as that. Best thing to do is to do the 100 calls first. But like if, you know, the world, you know, causes you to get distracted, like, and you have to do it at 7 o'clock at night, well, that's when you're doing it. Okay, so started getting back like to the database part, like you have a database, then you have to figure out how do you get those impressions. Those impressions can happen via a mailer, they can happen calling, texting, door knocking, whatever. And then they just need to happen every day. And again, it goes back to a math equation. So for calling, you have that database that we talked about building. Now you need to pull the phone numbers. So there's a million different places you can pull phone records from. I used to use a company called LexisNexis. They're probably fine. You can probably, the only one I wouldn't recommend is like a free service because you're probably going to get a bunch of home phone numbers. You obviously want cell phones to contact. And you need to use some sort of dialer because most people are not going to pick up the phone. So like the one that we used to use back in the day was Mojo Dialer. I don't cold call anymore, like we don't pay people to cold call anymore, we do the paid methods. But when we were, we would, make a couple 100, 300 phone calls in a day on a dialer. So the dialer will just call like multiple numbers at once, and then when someone answers, you get transferred. So you can make like 2 to 3 times more calls. If you're in the inner circle, we have scripts and we have a whole bunch of other stuff on cold calling, but it's not that complicated. I mean, you're basically just asking somebody if they would consider an offer on their house. It's really not much more complicated than that. Most people are going to say no. Okay, fine. And some people are going to say yes, and then you're going to try to book an appointment. There's more to it than that, but it's, again, same thing as the mailers. What the mailer looks like is less important than how many mailers you send. What your conversation sounds like is less important than how many conversations you had. So you need to shoot, if you're going to cold call, for a certain number of calls in a day, and a certain number of people will book an appointment if you make enough calls. Any questions on calling? Yep.
For an individual, what is ideal for the amount of calls per day on a 5-day basis?
So that goes back to that 5-step process. So I really need to know like what type of deals are you trying to do? How many of them are you trying to do? And that will become a formula as to how many calls, not that's good to do, but that you need to do. Like if you told me I want to book 50 appointments in a week, it's going to be a way different number than 5. It's going to be a way different number than 1. So if you're asking what's possible for a person, like what's possible for a human, I think if you're using a dialer, you could probably get to like 500 in a day. If you're really busting butt, like we used to have competitions. We had somebody who hit like 1,200 in a day.
Wasn't there legalities of the mojo in the state of Mass, certain states, lawsuits, people kind of chase ambulances back?
Yep, there's legalities to everything. And there's obviously legal ways to do stuff and not legal ways to do stuff. I'm definitely not a lawyer. I don't want to give legal advice. But I will say with any of this stuff, you have to make sure that you understand the rules and that you're doing it legally. There are illegal ways, every method I just mentioned, there are illegal ways to do stuff. And there are legal ways to do stuff. So you just have to be careful about when you're doing anything, just to make sure that you understand, the rules, for sure. Any other questions on calling before I get into texting? Yeah.
You mentioned list source and then being a 4-cent record. Is that a good place to start as far as buying a list and working off that list?
That's going to give you the list that you're going to then have to contact. So all that's going to do is give you an Excel sheet that has all the records that fit that criteria. And then you're going to have to determine how you want to contact those people. So if you're going to call them, then you need to also buy phone records. If you're going to mail them, you also have to mail them. All right, switching over to texting. Texting has changed a lot in the past few years. It's gotten harder to text people. There are a lot more filters that get put on phones in general. It's easy for people to unsubscribe, and definitely legal matters to it. The company that does it really well, they're called Lead Sherpa, and they teach you how to do it compliantly and what the rules are and what you need to do. It has changed a whole heck of a lot since it was introduced. And it takes a while. This is why you need to pick one strategy, because the strategies, even how you do them, change over the course of time. So I know there's all sorts of opt-out messaging that you need when you text and stuff like that now. But essentially the way that these things function is that you send out a bunch of texts early in the day, and you're literally just fielding the responses. Again, kind of like a lower, a lower barrier to entry in terms of courage, to door knock someone's door. You got to be kind of brave in order to do that every day. Same thing with calling. Texting is definitely probably the lowest barrier. Most people can press a button, send out 2,000 text messages and field replies to them.
So Lead Sherpa teaches you how to do that. And again, you're gonna, build lists. Lead Sherpa sells the phone records too. And they have all sorts of like measurements to make sure you're not texting people that you're not supposed to, and what all the rules are when you're doing these batch texting. Any questions on cold texting? So, and just to be clear, like as I'm saying this, like each one of these methods, I'm not covering them in the detail with which they're needed. Like cold texting, if you're gonna get good at it, you should spend the next couple weeks learning all about it. Obviously, we don't have a couple weeks to do that. I'm just telling you the high level, like where to start. Like Lead Sherpa has all sorts of training programs and platforms and stuff all built in. Mojo Dialer has the same thing when it comes to calling. All right, door knocking, we talked about briefly. Door knocking is challenging. Like everybody thinks that they can door knock until like there's a snowstorm. If you're gonna door knock, like again, you have to be willing to do these things like 5 days a week. Like rain, sleet, snow, whatever, like maybe you have a makeup day when it snows. But you've got to be hitting those amount of doors like every single day. It doesn't, like if you have to hit 100 doors in a day door knocking, obviously it doesn't mean that you can't do 200 in one day and 0 the next, but like it can't be something where you're like taking the winter off. Like you won't get the results that you need. So with all of these, one thing that you need to think about is like, am I actually willing to do this 5 days a week? If the answer is no, or like I need the season off, like you've got to find something that you're going to do every day. With door knocking, it's pretty simple. Again, you start with the list, like high equity, this, that, whatever you're looking for. And then you're literally just going door to door. And when I would do it, I mean, it's very easy. Like most people don't answer, you leave a door hanger. When they do answer, you're just going to ask them, hey, like I'm an investor. I'm looking to buy homes in the neighborhood. There's not a lot available on the market. Like, would you ever consider selling in the next like year or 2 years or 3 years? And most people will tell you no. And then some people will be like, yeah, I'm thinking about selling in April or May or whatever. With all of the prospecting methods, like most of the time, what you're going to get is not an appointment, but a follow-up. So you've got to have a database and you've got to manage your database well. Everybody that's in the inner circle gets access to a program called Follow Up Boss, which is the CRM that I love. You guys get it for free if you're in the inner circle, and you can set reminders. You can do a lot of things in that system, but you need to have a database for sure if you're going to do this. Because this business, if you haven't kind of figured it out already, like it's not much different than being an agent. That's what the whole agent investor model is built off of. Like you're not doing much else other than what you already are doing or are supposed to do. And most of these skills, like they cross each other. So same thing with door knocking. You're gonna come, you're gonna have your flyers, you're gonna do a bunch of doors, you're gonna ask the same question over and over again. You're gonna get people that are gonna sell now, some people in the future. You put the people in the future in your database and you follow up with them in the appropriate time. All right, any questions on door knocking before I go to agent networking? All right, so agent networking to me should be almost a must for everybody that's in this room, but it probably shouldn't be your primary way to do this because you're losing the benefit of getting those listing opportunities. But every agent who's in this room is in an office where there's other agents, knows other agents, is friends with other agents on Facebook, co-bros with other agents, and agents come across these opportunities more than you think. And most of them don't know anything different other than just putting the property on the MLS. They haven't been trained to do anything else. They don't know that there's another option. I mean, it's not their fault. Like most brokers just don't teach investing. I don't know why. It's why we have 400 agents, even though we're an independent brokerage. Like there's a void in the market, but most agents don't know how to do anything else, which is fine, but it's an opportunity for everybody in this room. Like if you want to target going after deals, like networking with agents is a great way to do it. So again, going back to the 5-step process,
you need to figure out where you're trying to get deals. So, again, such a simple thing, but there's a big difference between, flipping houses in Milton versus buying vacation homes, on the Cape. So if you're gonna buy short-term rentals on the Cape, obviously you need to target Cape agents that have a lot of listings in the Cape. So you can just kind of do that easily by going into MLS and seeing who has listings. We use a program called Brokermetrics. It gives us a lot more data on the activity on agents. It's kind of like a recruiting-based tool, but we use it for these purposes too. And if you're looking to target any specific area, you can literally say, sort for me all of the agents' transactions in this town. Show me all the houses that sold in Quincy and who listed the most number of houses. So you can get a list of 75 people ranked from 1 to whatever on how many listings they've had in that town. So all of us probably live in different towns, but we all know who the top 2 agents in our town is, right? And it's different for all towns. That's the crazy thing. In my town, there's a woman, she works for Leading Edge Real Estate, Linda O. And she's huge in Melrose. She lists a lot of houses in Melrose. But if you go to Malden, the next town over, you don't see her signs. I mean, I would venture to guess she probably grew up in Melrose, or she's been living in Melrose and she has, deep ties into the community, right? But if I want to flip homes in Malden, she's kind of useless to me. But if I want to flip in Melrose, then she's probably the top person that I want to connect with. So again, what's the benefit for an agent referring you a deal? Well, they're going to make double the commission at least. Potentially, you could even sweeten the pot more, but at least double the commission without having to market it. That's pretty attractive. That's pretty attractive just on its face value, given that most listing agents co-broke. So you're giving them an option where they're going to make double the money and save time, right? So those are the agents, if you know exactly the types of properties that you want to buy in certain cities, you can figure out who you need to talk to. And most agents are very open to that conversation, right? Why wouldn't they consider you as an option? It's not that you're forcing them to give you the deal or you're forcing their seller to take the offer, but you're an option for their seller if their seller wants to take a cash offer. You'll also get referrals from those agents too. If you have connections with agents, they'll know somebody in their office that's selling something. We got one from one of our agents, Kim, a while back. One of her friends, she used to work at Keller Williams, found a property in Lynn that needed a bunch of work. She told Kim, I don't even want to list this house. It's so bad. Basically complaining that the listing was not going to be a fun listing to have. Didn't even think hey, I could find an investor off market. Kim said, I know somebody, and the deal was pretty much done. So it was a bad listing for this person, but a great opportunity for us. Does that make sense? So it's the same thing that you're building a database of the agents that you want to connect with, but also probably telling every single agent that you talk to all the time. You're forced to talk to these people, right? When you co-broke with them. It's an easy conversation to have. Oh, by the way, I'm also an investor. Which goes back to the social media thing. Who are you adding on Facebook or Instagram or whatever platform you're using? It's whoever you're trying to target. If you're trying to target agents, then you need to add agents. If you're going after a specific town, then it needs to be the agents that are in a specific town. So we're talking about a lot of different things that you could be doing. Too many things. These things are not possible in the fourth quarter. So people are taking notes, which is awesome. But what you need to do after these events are over, the first thing I would do is I would join the inner circle. And I know I benefit from that, but that's the honest advice that I would give you. If you're sitting here wondering whether or not you should join or think about joining, the answer is you should. You're going to benefit. You will make more money working with us. But forgetting about that for a second, all of these notes are awesome. What most people do is they take notes and then they get busy the next day and they never implement. What I would recommend doing, because I've done it, I've gone to conferences, I have a bunch of notes and then I don't do anything. The best thing that you can do is later today or tomorrow, go through all your notes and then write down all the action steps that you could be doing. Right now, you have too many things on your paper that you could be doing. Like, it's way too much, you can't do them. So maybe you won't do any of them. What you need to do is rank them. Maybe you have 10 things that you wrote down, maybe you have 20, maybe you have 5. Rank them in order, and then pick the top 2 or 3 and do those this quarter. Put all the other ones in like an Excel sheet, a Google sheet, and look at those after the quarter's over. But what you need to do now is figure out what your top 3 or 4 priorities are that are going to move the needle in your business. Not the top 20, because you cannot do 20 things. You can do 2 or 3 or 4, maybe it's 1, maybe it's 5, but you can't do 20. So you literally need to rank like, okay, let me do an honest assessment. Like if I built a database, how much is that going to move the needle? If I start door knocking, how much is that going to move the needle? If I join the inner circle, how much is that going to move the needle? And then just do them in order. And this is a very hard thing to do because we all want to do, especially if you're in sales. I'm in sales. We all want to do the 100 things at once. I have a board in my office. It has all ideas on it. The whole thing's filled. It's like a wall, like that big, of all things I want to do. I'll never be able to do all those things in my entire life. Like everything that's already on my board, and I'm going to come up with 5 new ideas tomorrow, I'll never be able to do them. There's just not enough time. So we have to figure out like, what are the most important things that are going to move the needle this quarter, and do those in order. And don't do anything else until you finish those 2 or 3 or 4 things. One of the hardest things to do. But don't let this be like a note-taking session that becomes nothing, or like, oh, I have this information in my brain and then nothing happens after the fact. The easiest way literally to take action is to join the inner circle. Reason being is you're going to be around us more. Like, okay, yes, we're in Mansfield today, and some of you are local to here, and it was convenient for you to probably come here because we're, in Mansfield. But you probably won't come to the next event that's going to be like in Springfield, right? Just reality. Like you might want to, but you won't because it's going to be too difficult. Well, how do you get these messages like every single month? Like if you're in the inner circle, you're going to be on the coaching calls every single month. It'll refocus you on what you need to actually be doing, right? If anybody's ever been on the inner circle calls, it's a lot of repetitive things. But it's because it needs to be repetitive, right? You need to stay on track. All right, any questions about the free marketing? Yeah.
So, like when you do door knocking,
Yep.
are you just doing for investor, or are you trying to broaden that with getting listed?
Great question. So the question is like, if you're door knocking or really any prospecting, are you coming at it to try to get a listing or to try to get an investing deal? So to me, the first thing I'm looking at is how do I get an appointment? That's what I want to get. Like without an appointment, like I have nothing. So we have to think, what's the call to action that's going to get me more appointments? Hey, I'm a realtor that works for Keller Williams. Can I tell you the value of your house? Or, hey, I'm a home buyer. Can I come by to give you an offer on your home? If you're the average seller, which person are you going to meet with more on average? The answer is the cash offer, like all day long. Because not only are they going to be more interested in the offer, but you're also going to eliminate your competition. You're going to eliminate the person who has a cousin's friend who's an agent. Because his cousin's friend who's an agent, if you say, I'm going to give you the value of your home, well, my cousin's friend can do that for me. I don't want you to come for that. Oh, you're going to give me an offer? Well, I'd be curious to see how that compares to like the cousin's friend. So you're going to get more appointments that way. Now, when you actually go on the appointment, again, if you're in the inner circle, we're going to go on the appointment with you. You have to do a needs analysis to assess like what makes sense for the seller. Like everything else, in sales, you have to figure out what is the other person's goals, how do you help them achieve it? Because your goal is to be a part of whatever their what they're trying to accomplish. If they're trying to accomplish getting the most amount of money possible, then you're gonna be a part of that listing. If their goal is to sell their house with the least amount of hassle, then selling it to an investor is the part of that path that you want to be a part of. So I will never offer anybody any product until I know whether the product makes sense for them. If someone jumps on a coaching call with me, they ask me a question, I ask them 10 questions back. Because I have to understand what the right solution is. I'll never go in being like, hey, you should take, oh, your house needs work, you should take a cash offer. No, maybe they shouldn't. And that's why, like, when people have appointments, like, we like to go on the appointments with people, because it's one thing to, like, have gone on a listing appointment. It's another thing to go on a cash offer appointment. Yeah.
When you're cold calling, are you sort of, in your mind, do you have an idea if you're calling somebody for a listing, or if it is going to be for an investment? Because if you're going to say, would you like an offer on your house, then they're thinking, well, Zillow, less commission, that's what they're coming in and they're gonna buy my house for. I mean, how are you, like you say, ask questions, but when do you go to that point? Do you make that assumption? Do you kind of know who you're calling ahead of time? Or are you calling in a dual way where you're gonna switch back and forth and be finding out what's
No, so it's really the same thing as the last question. Like, if I'm calling, the main objective of a call or a door knock or a mailer is simply to get the appointment. I'm not making any assumptions about anything, and I am not asking them like a bunch of questions on that call. Because I want to do everything in person. You can never get a signed contract over the phone. So when I'm going in, if my only goal is to get an appointment, then I'm only focusing on making them an offer, because that's going to give me the highest probability of getting the appointment. So a call, a text, a door knock, a mailer, a pay-per-click ad, my top priority is just to get in the door. Then when I get in the door, I'm asking them a bunch of questions like, hey, like, why'd you call an investor versus like a realtor? Oh, because I just want to save on commission. Okay, great. Now I know what their thought process is. Their thought process is like, I'm going to somehow net them more money by being an investor. So I know that's an example of like when I know it's more likely to be a retail thing. But I'm not going to it's like you go to a doctor, right? A doctor asks you a million questions before they give you a diagnosis. I'm not going to give a diagnosis until I'm very confident in what I'm going to tell them. So even if they tell me, I just had you come out here because I want to save commission, I'm going to my brain is going to think retail listing, but I'm going to ask them like 5 more questions before I actually give them the diagnosis. And the diagnosis would be, hey, I know you called me out here because you want to save on the commission, but if we're talking about you getting the most amount of money, it's not going to be to sell to an investor. Yeah.
Are you putting any of the, like when the people tell you no, are you putting them in any kind of follow-up system?
Definitely. But the no matters, right? So if somebody tells me no, I need to know why they said no, right? So if you just say no to me, like if I say, are you selling your house in the next 3 to 5 years? And you say no. I'm gonna ask another question, which is like, oh, okay, do you have any kids? Something that's gonna give me more information to say what's the actual answer. Because no is the default for everything. Everybody. You ask anybody anything, especially in New England, the answer is gonna be no. Right? So it's usually the second question that gets you the real answer. I might say, oh, you have kids. Oh yeah, they're graduating in 6 years. Oh, would you at that point would you consider selling, or do you think that you're really just gonna live in the house forever? And I'm sorry I'm asking you that question, but I don't want to follow up with you a year from now if it doesn't make any sense for me to. I say that to people about the inner circle. I'm like, do you want me to follow up with you? Because I will. But if you don't want me to, please just tell me you don't want me to. But if somebody says no, I just got my kids into the school system, they're 7, that probably isn't going to be on my follow-up list.
But that's great though, that's great information, and that's information that like, it's much easier to get, like door knocking. Because like, when you door knock and you talk to people in person, you can usually get like better information. You can actually kind of see what's going on too. But yeah, like everybody should have some sort of follow-up, but like, I mean, realistically, anything more than like a year follow-up becomes like a roll of the dice. Because plans change. And somebody who tells you like, I'm never selling, 3 or 4 years later, that could change. So there's probably nobody that I wouldn't put a follow-up for like 5 years into the future. I would want it to be like at most like a year or two into the future. It also depends on like how important that lead is to me. Like, is it, like for me, like I'll flip anything. So like if somebody tells me they're gonna sell in 5 years, I'm not gonna follow up with them. Because it's that particular house isn't important enough to me. But if it was like the dream house of my wife, and like she was like, I wanna buy that house and that's the only house, like they might have told me 5 years, but I'm probably following up every 6 months because I want that specific house. Yeah.
Going in as an agent investor, when you meet with the seller, it's okay, it's time to actually talk price to them and give them some options. Say retail is 500, cash offers whatever 400 or whatever the math is. What's your best way that you coach and train people to present those two options?
So I don't do it like the way you just said.
Yeah.
Which is that like I don't present two side-by-side options in sales ever, unless I have to. Because what I like to do is I like to assess what actually makes sense first.
Yeah.
Like I try to figure out what they need and present that. I find that like when you give people options, that just leads to like more indecisiveness.
Yeah.
So like if I say, well, here's a cash offer, here's a seller financed offer, here's this, here's that, like the more of this and that I'm adding, in general, the more they're like, oh, you need to think about it. So I'm gonna try my best to figure out like which direction. Let's just say I know it's retail, then I'm gonna push the retail. And then I'm gonna say something like, I can give you my cash offer. I just don't think it's gonna work for you. If you want the number, I'll give it to you. But like you just told me this, and this, and that's why it doesn't make any sense. If I'm wrong, if I made a mistake, let me know. Same thing with the cash offer, except I'm usually leading in with a cash offer. So I'm usually not gonna present the listing unless they tell me that I want top dollar. All right, so I know that, we covered a lot today and we're getting, close to the hour to wrap. There's a lot of stuff that you guys could do. And like I said, there's just not enough time to kind of like cover this all. I know I've mentioned it a few times. If you haven't filled out the Inner Circle form, I would highly recommend that you do that. We're certainly not gonna like call you off the wall and like try to hard sell you into anything. All that filling out the form is gonna do is it's gonna create a conversation. We wanna work with people that wanna work with us and that we can help. There are certainly times where people fill out the form and it just doesn't make sense to work together yet, and that's okay. So I just wanna let everybody know, like if you fill out the form, it doesn't mean that like, we're gonna call you every day, we're gonna try to force you to do anything. It just starts the conversation to say like, can we help you? How would we help you? And the reason why those calls are important is because everything is very person specific. Like I can't stress that enough, that every person that's sitting in this room is gonna need different things. So I could talk, for 2 hours just about like the construction side of our business. And maybe for somebody that's in this room, that's important to like discuss. But it's too hard in a group setting to cover anybody's like individual needs. And when you get on a call with one of us, like we're gonna talk about your situation, what you're trying to achieve, what we can help you with, and whether or not it's worth it to select one of those options in order to get that kind of help. But like I said a little bit earlier, it is really important that if you are serious about, building and getting to financial freedom, that you lead with that.
and not have that be like the second or third or fourth thing that you're prioritizing. There's really only so many things that we can do. And we're all not just trying to make money and in business. We're doing other things. We're spouses, or, we have kids, or we have parents we're helping. We're doing other things, right? So that's a big priority in our lives. Then we have this retail real estate thing, and now we're trying to do investing. So there's a lot of balls we're trying to juggle. And if you don't prioritize becoming financially free, then it's going to be very challenging to do it. So that's why the inner circle is important, because it allows you to kind of shortcut time, prevent mistakes, and get extra help individually. So before we wrap, I do want to just announce that we're doing something a little bit different moving forward with our events that I think is going to benefit everybody in this room. So we know that, I like to think that I'm pretty important, but I also know that people aren't going to drive all over the world all the time to see me. Although again, I think that they should, but I know that they're not. Last month I came to the realization that that's just not going to happen. So what we're going to do on a move forward to help everybody out is we're going to do the same event once a month in 2 different geographic locations that are not close to each other. So we just started kind of rotating, geography. We wanted to get, south of Boston like we're at today. We want to be in Boston. We want to be west of Boston. We want to be in New Hampshire, maybe southern Maine. So what we're going to do starting next month is we're going to do 2 locations every single time. So the week that we do an event, there's going to be 2 very different locations so that more people can attend. So for October, we're going to do Boston and we're going to do Springfield. So that, whether you live, in greater Boston, or maybe you live in Connecticut or near Springfield or near Worcester, or, maybe even in Rhode Island, you have an opportunity to kind of select, an area that might be a little bit more helpful for you to get to. So that's going to be starting next month. Another thing that I want to mention just briefly, in terms of habits, there's no reason why everybody in this room can't listen to our podcast on a weekly basis. Now, I wouldn't just recommend listening to our podcast, the Agent Investor Podcast, but there's no reason why people in this room cannot be podcast listeners. We're in our cars all the time, and there is nothing more important than getting that type of information for free while we're doing nothing else anyways. So whether you're in your car, you're going for a walk, you're cleaning your house, one of the most important habits that high achievers have is learning. There's a saying, the more you learn, the more you earn. And coming to an event like this costs everybody, right? You have to take the time, you have to drive here, you have to sit here. I appreciate the fact that you guys made that big commitment to do that. It takes no commitment while you're driving to click a button and listen to it in your car. And that's something that everybody can do. And that'll get you decently far just by kind of tuning in and listening. And again, it's not just my podcast, but when you know what you need to get good at, there are plenty of people who offer this information for free. When I started, wanting to invest in 2003, this is all we had. It was in-person events. And by the way, they were never free. You used to have, for something like this, I would pay $200 to come to something like this, right? But podcast is now free. Information is more free than ever. So I hope to start talking to some of you that fill out those inner circle forms. I encourage you to do it. Even if you're not sure if you're interested, we'd rather talk to you than not. Before we wrap, are there any other questions related to it? Doesn't have to be in anything that we talked about today. But like I mentioned, I want to make sure that before everybody leaves, that you can all feel okay, I got my question answered. Yes.
So if you are talking with a seller, you're representing that you're an investor and potentially have cash on our business partners.
So if you're in the inner circle, you're part of that deal. So you're making an offer and you partner with the team that does it. Now, if you're not in the inner circle, it depends on like what your situation is. Like whether or not you're a part of that deal or you're just referring that deal. I mean, if you're not even a part of that deal, you can just say, hey, I work with investors that, be willing to make an offer on the property. It's an option. I think more than anything else, one thing that's important is part of that question. When we're going out making an offer, this is an option for them. This is not like something they have to do. This is something that, like, in my opinion, there's no reason why on every listing appointment, they shouldn't also have the ability to also get a cash offer if they want. Like, listen, we have a way for you to sell a little bit easier. There's no inspection. You can leave your stuff behind. There's no renegotiation on prices. It's just a flat number. Would you like me to tell you about it? Like, it's just an option. Like, I think that that's a value add. Even if your seller wants top dollar, like it's something that they have in the back of their head. Because there's also things that happen during the listing. Like, has anybody ever had, like, they thought it was going to sell and then like 2 buyers in a row back out? Like, I've had it happen on my listings, and you're like, sometimes the seller is a retail seller until they reach a point and they're like, you know what, like, tell me about that cash offer again. We bought a lot of like nicer houses like that, where sellers like, I want top dollar, but actually at this point, like, I just want to be done. And it doesn't mean that their house is like beat up or anything. In fact, sometimes we get like decent houses. Or they have like a small inspection item. And retail buyers right now are so finicky. Like, they're looking for reasons to back out. Obviously, interest rates are at 8%. It's extremely expensive. Like, all they need to hear is like something small, and then they're out. And so, sometimes sellers get fed up with that. Yeah.
Would you call yourself an investor to a seller, or like a home buyer, or?
So I definitely think like we actually have like for our ISAs like bad words and good words, and investor is a bad word, and it's a bad word for a few reasons. First of all, when you say investor, sometimes they think like, how many appointments have you gone on? Probably for us, where somebody thinks like you're going to tear down my single family ranch and put up like a hotel.
Yeah, condo.
So sometimes they hear investor and they think you can pay triple. But then the other segment of people, it's just the connotation the words have. They hear investor, they're like, oh, you're going to lowball me. So I just think that the word home buyer is a much better word. Investor like usually has negative like implications to it to most people. Or people just hate investors. They like look at them like they're like Wall Street, like, you have those type of people too. Yeah.
So would it say, we partner with you guys on
We list the property. Yeah. Yep.
What about stuff outside of geographic area?
Outside of what?
This geographic area.
So we buy in all of New England. So you'd have to go pretty far for us to not, what? Potentially Vermont. So it's not that we don't like Vermont or we don't like certain areas. What we look for is there an active market there? There are definitely areas of Vermont where that is a no. Like, so you have to think about like what our objective is to buy a house to be in and out in 90 days. So if the average, days on market in a town of Vermont is 90 days, like we want to have a property on the MLS and have it under contract in a week. If that happens in that area of Vermont, then we would do it. If it doesn't, then we would probably not. But that goes for like Maine too. Like there's places in Maine that are borderline Canada. So I would be shocked if anybody in this room got many leads that would be outside of our geographic area.
So what is our role in these types of scenarios after proposals? What are these, do we have any responsibilities for the rest of the process?
No, I mean, that's the beauty of it, is that like, it is plug and play completely. And so like, we also partner with people who flip houses. Like, Jason Goldfarb in our office, we just partnered with him on a deal. He flips houses, but like, he can only do so many at a time. So, and we just partnered with him on a house in Andover, and he just got kind of busy and doesn't have the capacity to manage construction. We're doing everything. We're doing everything. You have literally the only responsibility you have is to get an appointment. We'll go on the appointment with you. We'll do everything else. It doesn't mean that you can't be a little bit more involved, like Mike's a part of a renovation right now with us, because he wanted to be. But most of the time, like, it's just plug and play. Yeah.
What do we call you guys? I book an appointment with potential seller. I'm gonna go out there, potentially listed to bring you guys in, and I'm gonna bring one of your guys in. Who do I say is coming with me? Professional home buyer is gonna come with me? What's the?
Yeah, I think that's a good term. I mean, I don't really,
You said avoid investor.
I mean, nothing bad is gonna happen. I just like try not to use.
No, I get it, yeah.
Yeah, I think like I have so to me, if I'm on that appointment, I would say, like, if you already have had the listing conversation, I have another option you might want to consider. It's a home buyer, they buy a lot of houses in the area. They would be willing to make you an offer, like right on the spot, if you would want to know kind of, what that would look like.
If they ask us a ballpark, well, what would they offer Mike versus retail? Say, geez, I don't know, every house is different, let you guys get from them.
Yes, and the thing with that is that's really true. And so like, we get this question all the time, like, what percentage of market value will you offer? Well, it really depends, because let's just say the house needs a ton of work. We might basically be at market value. But yeah, like if somebody brings us into a house and it's in perfect condition, we're gonna be a lot less than the market value, because we can't make a margin that way. Which is why, like, if we go into a beautiful house and they want a cash offer, we're gonna tell them like why it probably won't make sense. But again, sometimes people tell us, yeah, I get it, I'm gonna make less money, but I want to be out of here by this time. Or I'm going through a divorce, I wanna be done. Like, we have one right now that's a divorce. And they're just like, yeah, we need to be done, like, immediately. Okay, we can make that happen. Yeah.
I wonder if one that we call squids.
Yeah, so you're in the inner circle. Like, I'll say this to everybody who's in, that's here, like, go to me for everything first. Because I have everything. If in a worst case scenario, like, I need somebody else to help me, I'll tell you to go to somebody else, but always start with me. Because in most cases, I would rather like know what you need. Because sometimes people ask for stuff and then they don't even need what they're asking for. Like, oh, you need cold calling, but your plan is to door knock. Well, like, that becomes a conversation about like why we don't need that information. Just as an example. So always start with me. Yep.
You do a bunch of like severely distressed properties, like something that pretty much obviously looks like a tear down or possibly even condemned or fire damage, that kind of thing where.
So those are all different things. So I would say if you guys are interested in partnering with us, do not think, we're not retail buyers. You don't need to be worried about whether or not we'll like something. We want to know about it, and then we can figure that part out. Like, I'd rather go on the appointment, I'd rather know about the deal. Like, don't put any filters on it. Like, if it's in a rural part of Vermont, tell me about it. Maybe we'll do it. Maybe I can find somebody who will do it. In terms of what we typically do, tear down is usually not a tear down. Like 9 out of 10 times when someone tells us a house is a tear down, most houses can be saved. Like, they don't usually need to be torn down. So that's the part where I wouldn't worry about that stuff too much. We do look at fire damage a little bit differently, because fire damage usually is a big project. So there are projects that we definitely like more than others, but at the end of the day, we're a business and we're looking at these deals, we're trying to make money. Like, if there's a big enough margin, we'll do most deals. But if it's like a really thin margin deal and it's a fire damaged property that's gonna take a year to repair, we're gonna weigh that. Yeah. Yep, we make the offers on the spot, we do the research ahead of time. You know, we are helpful to have at appointments because we know how to get these deals closed. We're not always gonna get a seller to take our offer on the spot, but when it's a match, we're good at getting the deal done. Because what we wanna try to prevent is them shopping it around. That's the whole purpose of this whole event, right? We talked about those 2 ponds, like, we don't want that fish to somehow get into the other pond. Like, we wanna make sure they stay in pond number 2. So we wanna try to get them under contract as soon as we can. Yep.
So when you do a cash offer, right on the spot, is that offer final, is it negotiable? Have you ever negotiated price? So suppose that the seller says, I have $1 in mind,
Yep.
you know, is this something you would entertain or?
I mean, it is rare that the offers are not negotiated on the spot. I mean, yeah, I have an amount I wanna pay. We are trying to get deals done. We are trying to pay the most amount that we can to get a deal done and be profitable. So sometimes it happens where we say, hey, we wanna pay $150 and they say, okay, good. But that's usually not how it happens. Usually they want $170 and then we're negotiating and we don't always get them signed on the spot. We try to, sometimes we don't, and then it's a follow-up and maybe we lose it or maybe we get it later. But yeah, I mean, there's not too many sellers that just sit there and say, hey, just tell me what you're gonna pay and I'm good with it.
So you have $1, you have a bottom line in mind, bottom figure.
We do, but I
you don't
mean,
offer them
even when, sometimes we don't think we're gonna come up and then we do. I mean, it's real life. I mean, we're trying to fight to get deals. It's like, you know, with a commission. Like, you might go in saying, I'm not gonna do this for less than 5%, and then all of a sudden you walk out with a 4.5% commission. Like, I mean, it's real life. Like, we want business and we fight to do as many deals as we can. And sometimes we pay more than we thought we were gonna pay. Sometimes it's literally heat of the moment. At the end of the day, even like when you're flipping, you don't know what that house is gonna sell for. You might think you know, but you're gonna be wrong every single time. You are, every single time you're gonna be wrong. Now, you might be wrong, like, I think I'm good, I'm usually not wrong by that much. But sometimes they sell for 10,000 more, sometimes they sell for 10,000 less. So it also, not to get too complicated in it, but like, there are certain areas, there are certain styles of houses where the comp might say 400, but you kind of know the last 2 times you sold a house like that, it sold for 425. And while there's no comp to show that, you kind of feel like it's worth it, you know?
So is that the cash offer including closing costs? So the seller only paid the transfer tax, maybe attorney fee, right?
Well, yeah,
What is that?
closing costs, I will never tell somebody I pay your closing costs, because what does that mean? People don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. Like, what's your closing costs? Like, you can list 5,000 things that could be a closing cost. So we're very explicit with what we do. Like, we don't pay their transfer taxes. It doesn't make sense. Like, it's not netting anybody more by us saying, like, we're either gonna pay you more money or we're not. So we're not paying for their attorney. We're not paying transfer taxes. Like, you wanna hire an attorney and they wanna charge you $15,000, this has happened. Oh, we'll do your closing costs. All of a sudden, the attorney charges $15,000 for a closing. Like, no, like, you wanna hire somebody, you hire them. The transfer tax is your responsibility. So whatever we're paying you, like, there's no games played with us on that angle. We're not gonna go in and be like, hey, we're paying your closing costs and hope that like nets us more money.
So that cash offer is just a purchase price, and everything else, whatever the seller needs to pay, they will still be paid.
Yeah, there's no additional things that we're like giving them. I mean, look, it's all negotiable. If someone says, you pay me my transfer taxes and I'll sell to you for 20 grand less, would I do it? Yeah. But like, we're gonna probably explain to them that doesn't really make a lot of sense. Yeah.
What's the best way to contact you, team, if we have a deal to present you?
Facebook Messenger and contacting me. Yeah, Mike?
Agency disclosure form, what's, as a broker, what do you tell your agents on what to fill out, what not to, when they're gonna buy it?
Yeah, I mean, if you're an agent, you need to disclose that you're an agent, like how you always would.
Yeah.
And again, like, none of what we do, like, we're never trying to hide anything.
No.
Yeah, so, it's just a standard form that you would, fill
No,
out.
but when you sit with them, technically,
Yeah.
like, let's say, who I represent.
Yep.
Like,
Oh, yeah,
I'm actually representing Tommy and his investors.
you would in that case. You would.
Right, he's facilitator, you're not really representing you.
Yeah, I think, I mean, that's a tough one. Probably either or, but you're
You're not representing them yet.
you're not representing
No,
the
you're
seller.
not signing this agreement, you're
Yeah.
bringing them a buyer.
Yeah, it does get technical because sometimes an agent will sign a listing agreement and then bring us the deal.
Yeah, facilitator, I think, makes the most sense.
All right, anything else? Yes.
So I bring a deal, we go on the appointment, and it turns out being a listing, does that listing come back to me?
Yeah, we will walk away from that. Like, we're not taking money from somebody because we went on a listing appointment. I mean, we're trying to buy it. That does happen. It has happened. And if a listing gets signed, it's your listing. I mean, it's your lead. Yeah. So it really depends. I would say in most cases, there's no commission paid. Having said that, I've done a deal with somebody who's in the inner circle, and they just did it differently. Like I always tell people, please let us come out on the appointments. This person knew this, they didn't do it, they signed a listing agreement. Called me, said, would you be interested in this property? Sure, we go out there, she has a listing agreement signed. There's no real negative to that, but at that point, the seller was expecting and paid a commission to her. I mean, that's like, these are your leads, so we can't really tell you what to do. You can do what you want to do. I just like to be the one on the appointment if we can. But yeah, so she got a commission, she split the profit. That wasn't even her intention. She wasn't doing that to make more money. I think she just went out, had in her mind, this is a listing appointment, signed a listing, and then like a week later was like, wait a second, I could partner with Tom. Because I have to do the same thing you guys do. Like I have to keep agents top of mind. Like I think she forgot.
So your offer price is still kind of after it, the low offer price will come again if you go into it, that's what you're not paying. I'm saying, the fact that's not.
Well, yeah, I mean, in almost all cases, the seller is saving money on the listing. Which can matter. Like I said, like we've had times where like we made an offer, seller ends up listing with somebody else on the MLS. They sell for the same price and they pay an agent too. So they actually net less. That has happened before. And the reason that has happened is because that other agent that wasn't connected with us wanted a listing and they convinced them to go on the MLS. And I'm not saying like we're not the solution for a seller to net more money, but there are cases where the seller actually nets less money by going on the MLS because they're also paying a listing commission.
So you're saying that we bring you a deal, you offer us to use the corporate commission?
No. No.
Unless we are.
No. No, so we have somebody on salary that lists all of our properties and we just charge the deal that. So it's like a discounted like thing. Yeah, we're like literally partnering with you guys on the deal. Yeah, so if you got the listing back, you would actually make more than us.
And I don't like that. I think it's fair enough to give up 50%. Yeah, like more than fair, to be blunt. All right, guys. Thank you for attending today. Please fill out those forms. And we will be in Boston and Springfield next month. Thank you. Good point. We are never doing the same topics. We'll rotate. Oh, yeah. Like the Boston and Springfield one will be the same topic. No, like we'll never repeat the exact same thing. So every month is a new topic. But like in October, there's only one topic. And if you went to Boston and Springfield, it would be the same thing. How's it going?
Very good. Okay.
Nice to meet you.
I was in the meeting last week, but I left the meeting soon.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, he told me. Yeah.
Do you have anything updated yet?
No, well, we're interested. The problem is those deals are a little bit different. Where like to get through one of those deals typically requires us to raise like $4 or $6 million. So we're in the process of like a $7 million raise right now. So whereas like on a flip we can do on a deal like that, we can only usually do like one at a time. So we're gonna analyze it, and we'll definitely let Chris know for sure. It's just that it's a little different. Like, we can't do it on limited amount of bills because of the capital. But keep like anything that you have like that, definitely let us know, and we'll look at it.
That's very good. I just opened the wholesale.
Awesome. The easiest ones is just like this small, like 22, 15 minutes. We can do basically unlimited. The bigger ones we do, it's just like, it's a capital.
This one in the Princess. I know this. I didn't know like how it's all we can try to give it an option. If we can see it's they're asking for it's a good thing. Just to
yes.
So let's see. You guys have any good news for that.
Yeah, Chris reached out to me this morning for an update, and my partner is still running the numbers.
I have some weights actually. I think maybe you should go. I'll send over to the Central Place or should I contact you or how do you want it?
Probably. I think I'm actually going to start watching.
you, like our eyes.
Right, and I was about 4 years away from it. I loaded my truck, I take it down. I wasn't on the
That's kind of what I I mean, the Waltham area.
So I still need
Even the car door,
so that's.
yeah, I see a lot of 3 units nowadays. So that 100K per door.
I know, and I've been spoiled. 5 units.
I don't really, not good about
That
it.
was, pockets. It wasn't on the market. The guy who's part of the insurance and, recently, like, I was.
So getting property records, not ones that are listed on. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey Kyle, I was just doing a little texting you. So I'm down in Mansfield. Yeah. I'm gonna have that to him today. I'm gonna stop him. I'll send him an email before I leave, and I'll be up there. Yeah, he just texted me too. You know, or trying to call him.
Depending on where you're at, just to say there's bad places. I like somebody who's property.
No, I just trying to get it. My plan was to
Yeah, do you think Brent is this more than it's just seeing what side he's picking whatever the stage.
So you. So that, everything is what I say.
well, I don't have anything to do. So I had. Yeah, and they signed the extension too for the finance using. So we're all putting it there. That's all.
I read it all.
I knew,
It was kind of like all over the news.
All right. I'll take you to drop it off.
It's not that.
All right. All right.
I'm gonna give him a call back too.
That I use on my,
All right.
like you talked about.
Okay, brother, I'll talk to you soon.
So, every time I do my-
Bye. Have a good
Where's
day.
that, where's that Georgia? I think it's mortgage.
You got his contact
Okay, bye, thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike, I have very quick question. So that's 2,000 cap for use. It's like if I meet a year, right?
So every year it goes down by, it
But
goes
the
down.
next time I meet the cap to go down to that.
Yep,
So
so,
suppose 23, I meet the cap, then by the 23.
We don't have to get a cap.
So,
So
I
every
already-
year, even if you don't need the cap, every year you need the company, the cap.
So if you waste 5 years and then you already done 10,000, so you don't have to do much.
Yeah, so if you're with the company 7 years, your cap is like $6,000.
Right, but then once you need it,
And
you
then
get
it's
100%, right?
Yes.
So that means if you're with the company long enough,
Yeah,
then you
after,
start making
after
money.
7 years, you do
After
2 transactions.
You make
you
It's
get-
really good, it's
20%
like,
every-
you know, mind boggling.
100% every year. Is that right? I didn't know that, I thought you has to be the years.
Hey, man, you know,
And then the
sincere, like,
next-
hey,
Next time, you make a cap, that year.
No, so it reduces every year of the, even if you don't meet the cap.
Even you don't need the cap,
And
it's
it's
working
by
out.
being here.
Even just by being an agent with that, you're gonna drop.
So after 7 years, then you just wait for the back up.
Well, it's
Why-
7 years, it goes down to 6,000. And that's the lowest it will go. So we cap is 6,000.
20 after 7 years to 6,000. So after that, you won't pay.
Yeah,
So
so
just
just
some
some
transactions,
transactions.
because I am on social media and stuff.
All right, that's
Friends reached out, they're like,
So,
"Oh,
Are you his governor?
Yes, I am, yeah.
So I'm usually trying to stay,
I started with an agent in Cameron, in the beginning of 2019.
So you never leave any.
What, no, so this is my first business. So I started
So,
with-
you know, if being in the industry, did you visit the office every now and then?
So no, not really today, because I live personally in Thompson, Mass, like 20 minutes when I do. I've gone a couple times, like I had to go to Walmart, and stuff like that.
Yeah, so it
So I
wouldn't,
won't-
you wouldn't have to pay any splits on your.
So I will get back to my bills.
At through your LLC, yeah, it's different, because I'm a partner, that's through my LLC, has nothing to do with my agent business, you know, or working with Cameron. There's no splits or anything, so you wouldn't owe your broker or anything,
Oh,
you know, so.
And, I know the area.
Because it's not a commission, it's a separate partnership.
Yeah, I'll give you my card too. If you ever come across anything, and the other thing, I just partnered with another agent in our brokerage who didn't have his license in Rhode Island. I was like, hey, Miguel, can you just write the offer, because he didn't have his license. And so we were able to split the commission, you know, obviously he got the 70, I got the 30, and I just helped him write the offer. So if you come across stuff in Rhode Island, you can help with it, if you're not licensed.
You're gonna need my go down.
Or deals. Yeah. I can help you over there. Vice versa, are you licensed in New Hampshire?
Just Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
Anything about an area, maybe, you know, between Boston and Worcester.
Yeah.
Anything around, a little more west of Boston.
Awesome.
Oh, good, man. All right, so I guess since I won't see you at the office, I'll see you there.
Yeah, see you at the next event. Nice to meet you.
Hey, nice to meet you, man.
All right.
Take care.
Yeah. Capital investor, yeah. Well, this one that we have coming, we do. Yeah, it's just another detail that we will lose track of. No. Yeah, it hasn't happened very often since we've been doing this. But, yeah, it's still. Right. Yeah. I'm sure it wouldn't mind helping finding other investors. I'm with you. Another 18, 19. We just did one in October, so you might be looking at a different class. You might be looking at a different course, the one we run.
Yes. Yes, I'm sorry.
He has, yeah, he has, it's the same class, so you might be thinking, he has another class that's just on, so they bring the class last weekend, and it's usually back-to-back meetings. Yeah. But you have to go all of those days, so it's 4 days, Saturday, Sunday, yeah. But then it's done, and then you just decide on your class. So I can, so once you get your license, you can take your license with us, and then you go on there, and you decide if you want to list it on the property. If you list it, and you get the commission, you get 80%. So it's $10,000 for everybody, and then you get if you want to hire an agent to do that job for you, you don't want to do that. No, not take the listing, but you want to give it down, then you can negotiate whatever commission you want with that agent. So if you want to get down. Yeah, oh yeah, once you have your license, you can negotiate anything. You have a deal. That's the most important part. So you always have an agent. Yeah, that's right. You're in. Like if it was excuse, I don't know, maybe I look at it. Yeah, something like that. Maybe it's, you give it 25%. Yeah, I just had, I did not see the deals. I can't even remember seeing 25. Yeah. Yeah. Take that over and you still get paid 50%, 75%. Yeah. I can yeah. And then getting 75% of that deal, whatever your gross commission is, that's what you're supposed to know. So if gross commission is $10,000 and you're giving 5,000 to an agent, you're keeping 5,000. Then from that 5,000, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's great. I mean, especially if you're not doing the legwork on it, if you're just referring it out and someone else managing the whole thing, you get $4,000 or $5,000. That's very competitive.